Good morning to everybody. Welcome back. This is not the Rodcast, though. This is definitely not the Rodcast. This is definitely we got to get that one fixed. There we go. This is the old-fashioned sports show. And I am your host, Anwar Richardson. Welcome back. Happy Tuesday to you. Taco Tuesday, Margarita Tuesday, whatever you guys, your Tuesday is going to be is August the 8th as we are barreling down this month of August, barreling down the rest of this year. I'm your host, Anwar Richardson. What is going on, everybody in the chat? I will be here in front of you for like the next 3 hours. And I got guests lined up that I'm super excited about. I'm going to have at some point. I'm telling you guys, I'm going to have Jeff Ketchum at 8:20 a.m. I'll be honest with you, I haven't fully confirmed that with him. But Jeff Ketchum dropped some stuff last night on Orangebloods. No. You can't drop that stuff and then just walk away. We don't hear from you until noon. Like, you've got to come on my show in the morning. So we're going to talk a little bit about his Colin Simmons update from last night. I've got Danny Davis from the Austin American Statesman. He's going to come on the show around the 9:20 hour. And then, of course, we're going to have my main man, Jason Suchomel, at 10:20 a.m. And yes, I know all about that Bama boat brawl. We will not discuss this on my show. We can discuss that in private, but that topic is way too toxic for a morning sports show. So we're going to keep it GP, or rather PG. So the dyslexia kicking in. We're going to keep it PG for the show. That would have been the drunk unk stuff. Like, drunk unk would have definitely done that, but we won't do that. We won't do that here. Y'all are not getting me canceled in week 2. You are not going to get me canceled in week 2, even though I've seen everything about the chair and I've seen every meme video you could absolutely imagine. I've been all on top of it in the privacy of my home and, of course, amongst my friends. But before we get too far down the line, this show is brought to you by my main man, El Presidente, Eric Sells Homes, DFW. If you are looking for a home in the DFW area, you look no further than my main man, Eric Torres. Eric Sells Homes, DFW. If you're looking to buy a home, you're looking to sell a home, like whatever your needs are, if you're in that area, Eric Sells Homes, DFW. He's a Longhorn fan. He's predicting 12-0 for the season. So you got it for that reason and that no other. So if you got friends who are, you got family members who are, he'll travel. I know. See, the people in Colleen get really nervous around this time. Because I always say, well, he'll travel to Colleen, but you got to have a house that's worth him traveling to. And people can lean. Someone called me out on Twitter and they said, man, you know, he always calls out those folks in Colleen. First of all, I call a lot of people just for fun. Like there's certain people that I always say, like Sam Houston State always gets a little something from me. Like they just do for whatever reason. I don't know what it is. Sam Houston State's done nothing for me, but I always do that. And the only reason I mess with you guys, people of Khalid, is because you guys have the highest STD rate in the state of Texas. Like that's the only reason why I mess with you. That's it. Outside of that, I got love for Khalid and the people of Khalid. Y'all better strap up out there because y'all dirty on them streets. All right, Eric Sells Homes, DFW. I have got lots of different topics that I wanted to get into. There's so many. There's a plethora. Guys, watch that Three Amigos plethora. You know what a plethora is? I've got a plethora of topics to discuss. And so many things that I want to get into. So I'll start to, I guess I'll get into some of the news of today, some of the news that was on Orangebloods last night. By the way, yes, Mike, it's higher than Lubbock. Just look it up. Just look it up. Just Google. Google will be your friend. You just look it up, and you'll be surprised that it's clean. Blake, can you do me a favor? There's an Orangebloods promo that's out there. Can you put that on the screen for a second? If not, listen. So listen, keep that up there for a minute. And some of the things I'm about to tell you were on Orangebloods last night. So the reason why I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of what's going on behind the scenes is because we do have a promo that's going on. 60% off your first annual subscription, which basically means about 7 months for free. I mean, it's kind of right. That math is about right around there. It's an interesting number, though, 67. I'm curious how they came up with 67. Maybe it rounds off as far as like the with tax or something. I don't know how that goes. But anyway, 67. Blake says it's the most they could offer. All right, cool. So listen, you get news for sure, but you go from being kind of a casual person that you kind of follows the team on social media to kind of becoming more of an insider. You get more some inside things, some inside scoop, inside recruiting, inside team news, inside analysis, like all those kind of things. And it's also a large community so it goes beyond just like the normal message board. I feel like when you say the word message board, it kind of dumbs it down a little bit. And it's like, ooh, who's ever in the basement? Like, oh, it's my mom and stuff in the basement. It's like, well, sometimes it's a little bit more than that. It's more of like a community is the best way I can describe it. You know, where you get to know folks and people like they form lifelong friendships and people help out each other where they have like a mechanic. It's like Yelp. It's like having Yelp on a message board in that regard, talking about different topics. So it's not always just Longhorns. There's lots of other things that people talk about. So it's better than like maybe when you get on the general board, it's like a crazy like people talking politics. We don't do all that in here. So anyway, give that gift to yourself. You know, as a Longhorn fan, and give that gift to someone else. So anyway, I just want to make sure that they had the promo in. And so the things that I'm going to discuss right now is going to be some of the things that we had on last night. And hopefully that's a teaser for you to maybe go ahead and sign up, because we definitely appreciate it. We definitely appreciate the love. And thank you, Blake, for putting that up last night. So let's get into some of the news of the night. And by the way, Jeff Ketchman did confirm to me that he actually will come in at 8:20 to discuss everything. So absolutely we'll be able to do that. 60% off to make friends with She Hooks them. Hey, you don't got to send her money. That's all it is. You get okay. The people San Antonio are gonna get mad at me about bringing that up. So I'll talk about some of the news today. News of the day. Hope everyone's having a good Tuesday so far. Looking forward to spending the next 3 hours with you. But some of the news of today start with yesterday's practice. And this is some of the stuff that Alex was able to obtain from his sources yesterday. We all kind of try to tag team this thing. Ketch tags teams it. I work with it, of course, as the lead writer that's covered the team for darn near 10 years. Can't believe it's been that long. And then, of course, Alex Dunlap contributes as well. Jonathan Brooks, for those who didn't know, Jonathan Brooks missed practice the other day. I believe it was on Friday when we were out there. Jonathan Brooks was not at practice. Jonathan Brooks was back at practice, according to Alex Dunlap yesterday. He had missed practice due to an illness. And those things always get you worried, right? Those things get you worried when they just say certain vague things like illness. And you're like, well, what illness are we talking about? It's just illness. But, he's going to be back anytime soon. Missed today. Like when people get really vague, you always get like, oh, I don't know. So, but nonetheless, Jonathan Brooks, especially for a guy like that, because what often happens, and especially as reporters, whether it's our website, other websites would definitely co-sign on the same thing. When you read as reporters, when people start getting vague about injuries, it's like, oh boy, you never know. You never know what's about to happen. You never know what's going to pop off when people get vague about things. I mean, who was it? I think it was like, if I'm getting it correct, and I think I am. I remember, I think it was like, was it Patrick Hudson who had like a heat issue? There was an offensive lineman who had like a heat issue at one point. And they kind of said it was, and I don't know if it was Hudson or not. I might be confused. I might be confused with someone else, but nonetheless, And there was an offensive lineman under Tom Herman that they said, like, oh, he just had like a little heat exhaustion, so on and so forth. And then come to find out, like, he had to go to be hospitalized for like several days. And it was like, ended up being something like really like major that had went on, and that they had to make sure like this young man lived. But they were just like, oh, just a little heat exhaustion. You can never really trust, like, whether it's schools, coaches, teams, college, pro, for the most part. When they give you injury reports, you always are like, oh man, I don't know. But thank goodness that Jonathan Brooks, he was back at practice yesterday, running with the ones. Steve Sarkisian spoke after practice yesterday. They have practice tonight, by the way. And in fact, they have media availability at 10 p.m. tonight. 10 p.m. tonight. That's going to be interesting. But they do have practice tonight. And yesterday, Steve Sarkisian talked about the running backs, and he said how well that Jonathan Brooks had did in practice, and I was really satisfied with that. And then also mentioned a little bit of Jaden Blue, and I'll get into some of that stuff a little bit later in the show. By the way, make sure I let you guys know Ketch is going to be on at 8:20, so he'll be here in a few minutes. We may have buy or sell at the top of the hour, but it all depends on, or bottom of the hour. It all depends on how long Ketch and I go. So if you want to, go ahead and get your buy or sell questions in now. So Blake and Aaron is behind the scenes. They can go ahead and start compiling that. So get those questions in now. It will probably come sometime after Ketch and I, but I just cannot guarantee when Ketch and I are going to stop talking. Chad, it could be 10 o'clock. I don't know. I got Danny Davis coming in at 9:10. So just know let's just be fluid with this whole situation. So that happened there. And last thing, Danny, and of course, we'll have some social media standouts a little bit later in the third hour. Here's the other, I think, big news of yesterday that occurred when, and of course, from Alex. So hopefully you guys come on Orangebloods soon. DJ Campbell, the sophomore guard, was starting at right guard on Monday. And it's funny because someone just asked me yesterday about DJ Campbell being potentially in the starting lineup. I wish I couldn't go. I wanted to go back, and I just didn't have time to see who it was that asked me that question. I feel like it was a buy or sell question, and I kind of said, like, I think the starting lineup is going to be the starting lineup. And then, like, a few hours later, I was absolutely wrong. So, but I DJ Campbell being there at the right guard position and making that push as a starter. Now, look, everyone gets turns with the one, so that's not. I won't want to overreact and go too far off the deep end as far as that's concerned. But understand that DJ Campbell had an opportunity to start at right guard, so that actually occurred yesterday. And Cole Hudson was working with the twos yesterday, as Alex kind of describes. He describes it as this. There's a big development in the fifth practice around the most anticipated position battles coming into fall camp. And look, if you're a gambling man, if you're a betting man at this point, when you get a guy who's a 5-star and he's pushing, that might be that indication like, this guy's coming. So to just know DJ Campbell right there at that right guard position. Cam Williams is the guy we've talked about, and Cam Williams may just have to wait his turn, but Cam Williams is going to be in the mix. But DJ Campbell is making that push. It's just so good. Can we just stop here for a second? Can we just stop here and take a moment and pause, and a moment of excitement for you being able to say, like, man, Texas is actually stacked at the offensive line room. Okay, can we just take a moment and can you just celebrate this one? Because we're actually talking about competitions, about good players. Good players are actually having the opportunity to compete, man. And we're not just talking about guys who just got positions just because. Like, guys who are just, you got to start somebody. We're talking about really good guys. We're talking about the DJ Campbell's getting in the mix, and the Cam Williams getting in the mix, and Neto being on the outskirts and kind of pushing, and getting and having that opportunity. And then recently, Kyle Flood said, "Hey, they've got some of the guys from this year's class they actually are impressed with what those young men are doing. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have a chance to play this season, but this whole room is just stacked. I just felt like we needed just to take a moment to just celebrate that and acknowledge that. Good morning, Barry Sorrell. He just wanted to come in and just let everybody know that 88 is great. I just want to let y'all know 88 is great. I stay on that porch, Barry. Just stay on that porch. Boy, that dog barks consistently. That dog barks more than Ketch's dogs. Is that possible? Is it possible to have a dog that barks more than Ketch's dogs? Well, dang it, Barry Sorrell, that dog barks every single morning and every single day. He's very consistent. And man, I tell you what, Barry, you have inspired me. When my son starts doing these things in athletics or what, man, if my son plays chess, Barry, I'm gonna be like, man, he's the rank whatever, like the best. Like that's just how that's going to be, because you've inspired me as a father and as a man. So just wanted to so shout out to you as well. Another thing that I'll just throw out there that was interesting was that it looked like Isaiah Nayor yesterday had some run ones, so that happened as well, right? So Isaiah Nayor is another guy, maybe right there on the cusp, and he was getting some run there as well. So that was another huge development that we had there on Orangebloods, and that happened there yesterday as well. Again, just want to give you guys just a little teaser of things that are to come, things that are going on behind the scenes, things that we have reported, and things I want to bring to you people as Longhorn fans, as regular sports fans, as people who just want to watch a team. I know we got Texas Tech fans and Baylor fans. We got OU fans that like to watch it out of curiosity. And you guys are more than welcome to come into this love den and be with all of us and enjoy ourselves. So that's what happened. Okay, so here's another thing that happened. We're going to get ready to go to a break, and I'm going to bring him in because Jeff Ketchum, around 10 o'clock or so last night, just decides to just blow up Orangebloods and just have it totally go crazy with a Colin Simmons update. Just out of the blue, here it went. Next thing you know, I think we're about 8 pages in at this moment, and everyone's talking about it. He had a lot of points that I had printed out. And look, as we get closer, I was like, hey, look, I can't wait until noon for Ketch to discuss this thing. Like, he's got to come on. He's got to discuss this now. So when we come back from the break, Jeff Ketchum will be here. Of course, I got to play the Speakeasy Lounging show, though. But let's go to a quick break, and we got Jeff Ketchum coming on the other side.
This Orangebloods recruiting flashback takes a look at maybe the best thing Charlie Strong ever produced for the Texas football program. What is that, you ask? Identifying Sam Ehlinger as the quarterback of choice for the 2017 recruiting class and then landing his commitment. For those who might not remember, Ehlinger finished as the nation's number 115th overall prospect in the 2017 Rivals recruiting rankings, the 17th best player in the state of Texas, and the number 5 dual threat quarterback in the country. While Rivals eventually came around on Ehlinger, I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit for ranking Ehlinger as a top 10 prospect in the state and the number 1 quarterback in Texas before he ever received a scholarship offer. SMU was technically the first school to offer Ehlinger, but it's important to note that right after the Mustangs came after him with an offer, Houston head coach Tom Herman followed. Not long after Herman offered, Ehlinger received his first Power 5 offer from Charlie Strong and the Texas Longhorns, an offer Texas fans have been anticipating since a terrific display by Ehlinger at the Texas Elite Quarterback Academy in mid-June. According to Ehlinger, Texas OC Sean Watson told him that they weren't going to offer any other quarterbacks in the 2017 recruiting class. Quote, "They're not going to offer anybody else," end quote, Ehlinger said. 9 days later, the lifelong Texas Longhorn fan, you might have heard about that over the years that followed, committed to the Longhorns. Quote, been a Longhorn since day one. I'm truly blessed to say that I'm committed to the University of Texas, Ehlinger announced on Twitter. There wasn't a lot to Ehlinger's recruitment for the better part of the next 16 months as he finished his junior season, competed at the Elite 11 finals going into his senior year, and then went on to begin his senior season in 2016 at Westlake without any distractions. Yet a thumb injury ended his senior season prematurely at Westlake, and it coincided with a horrible 5-7 year for the Longhorns that ended with Strong's dismissal. Suddenly, there was some doubt about his future for a day or two. Almost as soon as Tom Herman was announced as the Texas head coach, he met with Ehlinger to ensure that the player he first offered nearly a year and a half earlier, and before Texas ever offered, knew that he was at the center of all of his plans while on the 40 acres. Following that meeting, Ehlinger locked back into his commitment, and the rest is Longhorns history. Ehlinger was the best part of a 2017 recruiting class that Ehlinger often joked was nicknamed the shit-stain class because of the small reputation it had upon its arrival. It ended up being a class that produced 4 NFL players: Ehlinger, Sam Cosmi, Taquan Graham, and Josh Thompson.
Yes, good one, and always good information on Sam Ehlinger, who statistically ends up being one of the best Longhorn quarterbacks in the history of this program. All right, let's go ahead and play the intro. It's time for the Speakeasy Lounge. It's time for us to talk to Jeff Ketchum. I'm dying to talk to this man. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning.
How are you, sir?
I'm there. I'm here.
That's not the best endorsement. That sounds like a man with very little sleep. That's what that sounds like.
Ultimately, that's it. Like, these are the first words that have come out of my mouth to anybody today. So, like, I'm just warming up.
Okay, that's
by the end of this segment, like, I will probably be much better. But right now, it just feels like my mouth is relearning how to talk.
Fair enough. Well, we're going to get that. We're going to get you warmed up because there's a lot to discuss. Obviously, Ketch, as you know, the announcement date of Colin Simmons approaches. You have been, all over it as far from a reporting aspect for us here at Orangebloods, and you dropped something last night, and I believe if I printed it out, you had about 10 interesting points as relates to Colin Simmons.
Thank you, because some people would describe, instead of interesting, they'd be like, "That was some bullshit."
I read the comments. So, I thought it was all interesting. Whether it was what you had on Sunday, which was the timeline, and then of course last night. Where do you want to go? I understand some of it's proprietary information, but I'm also been trying to give people the teasers of the things that go on behind the scenes at Orangebloods as well. What can you tell us as relates to Colin Simmons as far as your report last night?
This is my interpretation. So a couple of things. I had a really long, it was almost like 2 hours worth of texting last night with a source of mine. I'd have to look at my phone, but we continued texting even after I had posted an update. And it wasn't just a conversation with him. This was kind of, Suchomel had been talking about people that he had talked to. Quite frankly, it was the impetus behind me even reaching out to this particular source on Monday, because it's not Thursday yet. But it occurred to me, like, you know what? Let me just check in with, after a day of talking to a lot of people, let me check in with what I think is my number one source on this, and we have dozens of sources. I don't think people realize that on any given day, depending on exactly what we're trying to find information about, there's a lot of different people that we go to. You, me, Suchomel, everybody's got different sources too. I I went to what I think is my best source on the Colin Simmons front. I think there was a change in tone regarding the recruitment slightly, but trying to read tone in text can sometimes be difficult. You know what I mean? Like, I think there was a change of tone, but it's only I'm judging that through what I'm reading and not necessarily what I'm hearing. I think the change in tone was, it's very possible that Simmons will commit to LSU on Thursday. I think there's a feeling on the Texas side that he's still caught up in the high of that LSU visit from, at this point, it hasn't even been 10 days. And so I think there's an acknowledgement that it could happen. I think there's a feeling that everybody's guessing to a certain extent. I don't think Colin Simmons is being completely direct with regards to what's going to happen on Thursday, because I think he knows if he does, word will get out. And then why have an announcement when the entire world knows what's going to happen? Mm-hmm. And so here we are. My sourcing strongly believes that when the dust settles in December/January, that Texas will get Simmons. I don't think they view Thursday as a truly critical moment in the recruiting process. I think they feel like it's kind of stupid that he's committing, because it really is pretty close between LSU and Texas. It sounds like there's probably conversations that are taking place on some degree every single day, and things change a little bit here and there. There's give and take. I think Texas feels like, from an NIL perspective, they won't be beaten on Colin Simmons. So and look, you and I have this conversation all the time. Are we gonna live in a world where NIL? Are we gonna say it out loud that NIL matters? Correct. Or are we gonna pretend that money doesn't matter?
Correct.
If money matters, there's a sense that Texas eventually will not be denied. But there's a sense that right now, right here, a decision on Thursday won't be made based on NIL or anything else. It may just be made on feelings. And in terms of feelings, LSU may have an advantage over Texas with regards to, I genuinely think the kid loves Baton Rouge and being in that town, in that city. I think he feels at home, which means he really likes LSU. And I think that that's the thing that Texas is trying to fight. They may not win the fight on Thursday, but there's still really strong confidence that that he'll end up at Texas in December and January. It makes this recruitment really difficult to completely discuss, because he's literally announcing his commitment on Thursday, and there are people who just don't believe that it's a really important thing. These aren't my opinions. Yeah. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the kid committing isn't important. It just defies logic. But look, I'm warming up. See, I'm better now than
You're getting there, buddy. You're getting there. I feel it.
I think that we are in this NIL age. This is what it looks like when the number one player in any state has leverage. There's just a lot of things in play here. And I think Thursday is not the final chapter of the book. It's a chapter in the book. And does it mean if he commits on Thursday to LSU that Texas has no chance? No. If he commits to Texas, does it mean that LSU's cooked it in the water? I don't think so. Again, I think the kid's making a commitment because he's talked himself into, I need to make a commitment before my season starts. But I don't think the recruitment will be over based on what I'm hearing from sourcing. The last thing this particular source said is, we won't panic.
I mean, Ketch, Is this the thing that you tell yourself, or someone, and not you, but the person tells themselves in order to make themselves feel better about losing, right? Like, we got another shot, guys. It's like, I feel like it's like an AAU tournament. It's like, well, we lost one, but we got another shot, for down the line. It's like, okay, but you're playing from behind at that point, and if it sounds like, and I'm trying to read into between the lines of what you're saying, right? It sounds like LSU has his heart, like LSU, how it sounds like it is his love, and the Texas reply will be, well, we'll just money whip you in the end, and it'll be all good. Like, am I just simplifying it too much? Because that's all I'm hearing. That's what's coming through my filter.
I mean, is that a simplified breakdown of the situation? Probably. Is it an accurate, simplified breakdown of the recruitment? Very possibly. And look, one of the things that my source is telling me is that if this doesn't, I think the sense is, in this new NIL age that Texas lives in, I think there's a sense that it's always about NIL, right? When you and I first started talking about you coming to Orangebloods, I tried to put all of the romanticism into it. Oh, Anwar, you can become one of the great college football reporters of all time. You'll be synonymous with the sport. Forget about the NFL and its hierarchy and how hard it is to climb up the ladder. Come to Texas. You'll be the guy at the number one site in the country, and forevermore, things will change. And at the end of the day, money also mattered.
Yes.
Ketch, everything you said sounds great. You know what? What you're offering me, take a third of it off. Save that. The opportunity, my heart, Austin, all these things.
Yeah.
They
all the things
matter.
that meant nothing to me.
What's that?
All the things that meant nothing to me, right?
Hey, how much are you going to pay me ultimately helps. And how long are you going to guarantee?
I mean, we can have the conversation now, Ketch. I said we need to have a conversation about pay before I even get on a plane.
It's true.
It's not worth us.
Don't waste my time.
Don't waste that. I don't want to waste yours. Don't waste mine. And then then I'll get on a plane, and then I'll see this beautiful Austin that you're talking about.
So, might some of this be naive on Texas's part? Maybe. Might it also be true, though? Because the sense I have is that LSU's not even competing with Texas truly from an NIL standpoint. They've explained to Colin Simmons and his family, kids at LSU make bank. Look at Angel Reese. Look at the gymnast whose name escapes me at this very moment. Oftentimes pointing at a lot of athletes that aren't football players. And I think Texas is in these conversations, hey, our players have Lamborghini deals. It's real here. You're going to make bank. I don't know I don't know the numbers. I don't know if they truly exist, in specificity. I don't know. But they're large enough that what I'm hearing is a lot of confidence from Texas. Let me put this on the screen. This is one of the last messages that I had with my source. This occurred after I put out the report. I told my source, because I kept asking for a percentage, and my source was kind of ignoring me whenever I would ask for a percentage. And to be fair to my source, percentages get you in trouble. People always want it handicapped, but by God, if you ever get the handicap wrong, then it's 85% forever. So I said, I have reported 70-30 because 60-40 feels like a coin flip. But it sounds like it's more of a coin flip for Thursday than 70-30. But it might be 70-30 overall when we project to January. As you can see, my source, in his words, not just mine, exactly, I think there's a 70% chance he eventually comes to Texas. Eventually.
So it sounds like they're throwing up, and I just want to interrupt. It sounds like they're throwing up Thursday as an L. It sounds like
they don't know. That's the thing. They don't know. They just don't know. There's total guesswork taking place right now on both the Texas and the LSU side. LSU sources don't know. They feel good, but I don't think there's been a definitive report on this that it's over with. He's definitely announcing this on Thursday. I think there's just a lot of people trying to read the tea leaves. And because the sourcing doesn't know, all he can do is kind of project what he thinks down the road. I don't think Texas knows what's going to happen on Thursday. I think they're prepared for the worst.
Ketch, okay. Because K-Horn takes my thought out of here. And I pulled up your LSR. So I have that in front of me. I feel like in this 2024 class, right, Ketch, where there's clearly lots of talent. Of course, it's talent every single year. But I feel like Texas fans have had to have the easiest way to come to grips with Micah Hudson potentially going somewhere else, potentially going to Tech, was like, well, still got Colin Simmons, still got Kobe Black. And so I feel like Texas fans have had to kind of wrap their heads around he'll go there to Lubbock, blah, 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 blah. And just whatever to Micah Hudson. But Colin Simmons was supposed to be like, well, but you still got a chance with that. As we get a little closer, there's a part of me that's like, wait. The fireworks that we thought were supposed to happen in year 3, they can still happen. It's not, the signing day has not occurred yet. So there's still, so here we are, we're having this conversation in August, and things could change once we get towards the end of the year. But Ketch, if Texas misses out on Colin Simmons, it's hard. You tell me if I'm wrong. It's hard to view this 2024 class, especially getting the elite guys, as nothing but disappointing. Even if they want to kick the can down the road and say we still got a shot. It's still opportunity there. Okay, we can see what happens in December, but as of August, if Colin Simmons announces LSU, I don't know how this can be framed as anything other than disappointing.
I mean, it'd be a disaster.
Okay, so I was too nice with my words.
There are two things going on here, right? There's me trying to convey the lay of the land, and the lay of the land through the filter of my sourcing. Then there's my opinion. And I don't know that I've given a lot of opinions. Okay. But if they don't get Collins, look, I don't know that if they get Colin Simmons, that it's truly a successful recruiting year inside the state of Texas. Texas doesn't have a commitment yet inside the Rivals top 20 in the state of Texas. Texas doesn't have one. Florida's got 2. Georgia's got 3. A&M's got a couple. Texas has none right now. They're hanging their hat, as kind of fate would have it. Colin Simmons and Kobe Black are real, like they are the last 2 bastions of hope in an in-state recruiting year that I think is already a disappointment. Texas needs to be getting 5 of the top 10 at a minimum inside the state of Texas every year if you're going to say you've had a great year in recruiting. If it's less than that, okay, maybe you had a really good year, but it's not great. If you have none, it's a disaster. No matter how well you do at state. Steve Sarkisian did not come to Texas and then in his opening press conference say, well, recruiting in Texas is really hard. We're actually not going to worry about it. Like, we're not going to let the recruiting inside the state of Texas define how well we're doing in recruiting. We'll just go out of state. That's not the philosophy. The philosophy is we got to win in Texas, but we'll go out of state and supplement our needs strategically with out-of-state kids. They've done a really good job of that. I think their out-of-state recruiting this year is borderline A-grade stuff, especially if they close with a couple of out-of-state 5-star level-ish players that they've been recruiting. But in-state, they got some work to do because this 2024 class has been a bit of an abomination from a where Texas fits into it standpoint. The thought, though, has been, well, you know what? 2024 could be a little bit of a one-off because if you look ahead to 2025, for months, it's looked like Texas is getting ready to roll in 2025 in-state. Perfect example. Duncanville wide receiver DeCorian Moore, the number one player in the state of Texas, has been leaning to Texas for months. It's been one of the chief examples. Well, they're struggling this year, but like they got Andrew Marsh lined up. They've got DeCorian Moore lined up. It feels like they got Michael Riles lined up. And they got some top 10 guys that seem like they're ready to go. And then DeCorian Moore took a visit to the same trip that Colin Simmons took, DeCorian Moore took, and then that kid came back saying, you know what, maybe I should give an early commitment on August 10th as well. He's not going to, but it was a consideration. But now we suddenly live in a world where DeCorian Moore, if he announced today, would announce for LSU as well. And there's a part of me that's like, how did that just happen? How did that kid go to LSU after seemingly being a guy lined up? I think I've already got a future cast in for DeCorian Moore in Texas. And now he is leaning towards LSU. Maybe they're not getting ready to dominate in 2025 in state. Like I thought, well, maybe they will. I think it raises the stakes of this season. And Texas can't just win 9 games. That is not a big year. They're going to change the dynamics in recruiting in their own state. It's going to take something more, and no pun intended. And that's
for the 2025 class, though.
What's that?
You talking winning for the 2025 class? Because
all of it. Because clearly in state in 2024. The best of the best prospects aren't having it. Now,
I'm over this conversation.
By the way,
I'm over this.
Colin Simmons commits to LSU. Do you know who should be the happiest dude in the entire state of Texas?
I got to find out. Oh, Jimbo.
No, but he'd be like 3rd or 4th.
Okay, all right. So he's on the list.
Kobe Black.
Oh.
Because imagine a world where Colin Simmons commits to LSU. Kobe Black's already a critical player for Texas in this recruiting class, but he might be the only elite guy that they have still, I mean, look, I don't know what to tell anybody who's like, Ketch, I'm not going to feel real good if this kid commits to LSU on Thursday. I'm not confident that Texas will flip him. I can point to Anthony Hill from last year. I can point to Colton Vasek last year. I can point to the Kelvin Banks and Cam Williams from 2 years ago. This isn't the first rodeo for this Texas staff to lose on a kid initially and then find a way to get the damn thing done. And yes, NIL sometimes helps you get there. Look, would they have gotten Kelvin Banks and Cam Williams if the Pancake Factory thing hadn't been announced 10 days before signing day or whatever that was? Maybe. But you know what? That helped. They were like, whoa, okay. All I got to do is show up and I'm getting $50,000 and that's the minimum. It helped. And I think that there's just, but so I can say all of that though, but I can't, if somebody says, Ketch, it's not good if he doesn't go to Texas on Thursday, don't give me that 70-30 stuff about December, January. Man, I can't strongly argue that what I'm suggesting sourcing thinks will happen. I can't say for sure that it will. I don't know that. I don't know. I don't completely know how I feel about what happens from Thursday on. But in the context of from 30,000 feet, how is 2024 recruiting in the state of Texas for the Longhorns? It's not good.
Well, Jason puts up something in the super chat, Ketch, and it says, one of the reasons Texas isn't back is consistently being the runner up on the elite recruits. The list is a mile long. And this is kind of, Jason has my thought here, Ketch. In my, when I joke, and I somewhat joked, like, I'm done with this conversation, my thing and my thought process here, Ketch, is like, well, I feel like I hear this darn near year in and year out. Well, Texas needs to win on the field. Well, Texas is considered to be the number one team in the Big 12 this season, right? It's undeniably the number one team. They came out ranked 12th in the coaches poll. Everyone says this team is more stacked than it's ever been. From a team standpoint, people are thinking 10 wins and more. Like, to me, the momentum should be there. Like, it should be here right now. The lightning about, like, are we waiting for some magical season, some 15-0 magic in order for this to happen? Like, when someone in the chat said kicking the can down the road, that's what it seems like. It's like kicking the can down the road. And it's like, well, Micah doesn't happen. We'll get this person. Well, Colin Simmons doesn't happen, but then maybe we get Kobe Black. Oh, Colin Simmons doesn't happen, but maybe Colin Simmons can happen in December or January. And it's just like, when does it just happen? When does this Texas just go ahead and just dominate in-state recruiting the way that Mac Brown used to do? Or are we just, is that the things that we tell our kids, because that just isn't going to happen again?
I mean, I'm picking Texas to go 9-3. I don't know that I'm the one to ask the question. I look, Texas. Jason will say one of the reasons Texas isn't back is consistently being the runner-up on elite recruits. The list is a mile long. I mean, they're in on a lot of elite recruits. They rank 5th in the nation right now for most super blue chips on their roster of any program in the country. 2 behind Texas A&M and Ohio State, which are tied for 3rd. So they're winning battles. I mean, they just signed a recruiting class that had Arch Manning and Anthony Hill and Malik Muhammad and Jonte Cook and, Colton Vasek. Like, they signed a class that had guys of this ilk in it. But yeah, they're losing some too. But, Georgia and Alabama lose a lot of elite recruits because they go in for a lot of elite recruits. You're not going to get them all. And this isn't me trying to placate and say it's okay if they don't get it, if they don't get Colin Simmons on Thursday or ever, because they got all of these other guys. That's not what I'm saying. I'm only pointing out they've got more than 95% at least, right? There are 4 schools in the country right now that have more elite prospect level players in the program than Texas currently has. So they're improving, they're landing more guys, but the 2024 class right now isn't what the 2023. This time last year, Texas had Arch Manning and CJ Baxter was coming down the pike. And Jonte Cook, you know what I mean? You could okay, Derek Williams, right? There were guys, Malik Muhammad, they were just starting to, it was happening. I think the concerning thing is that what we're seeing in the state of Texas this year, we saw a year ago to a certain extent. Texas only signed 4 of the top 19 prospects in the state last year from the state of Texas. But they were all total badasses. They only got 4, which isn't enough, but the ones they got made you forget that they only got 4. Anthony Hill, Jonte Cook, Malik Muhammad, Colton Vasek. Enough to make you forget that on the totality, it wasn't a great year. I think the scary thing for Texas is that when you look at what's happening in 2024 in state, it's the continuation of some things that we've seen in the last couple of classes. And do you know the word that they use whenever there is a continuation of things, Anwar, they call that a trend. And the trend right now in state isn't good. Feels like Texas is much better out of state right now than in state. And I don't mean that with regards to the Colin Simmons recruitment. I mean that with regards to recruiting in general.
I feel like I've read this book before, Ketch. I feel like I've heard this about, Tom Herman and them.
You read it in 2019, Anwar.
Yes, like I've read this book before, and it didn't end well. Like the ending was not a good one. Like everyone points to that book and says that wasn't good. So, all right, we had some super chats that kind of rolled in, Ketch. So let's go ahead and knock those two out. I don't want those guys to wait too long. Jay Morrison, he said Colin Simmons reminds me of Harold Perkins recruitment. We have yet to land these type of prospects over LSU, Georgia, Bama head-to-head. Why is that? Harold Perkins recruitment, that kind of predates me, Ketch. I don't get the reference. Can you help me?
I mean, Harold Perkins was 2 years ago, but Texas wasn't really involved in that recruitment.
I thought it was an older Harold Perkins.
No, he's talking about the starting linebacker at LSU.
Oh, okay. There was a one before that.
I mean, Texas wasn't a factor in that recruitment, so I don't know why. I mean, Texas A&M is the school that had Harold Perkins seemingly locked up for 12 months and then didn't close the deal. If you're comparing that situation with Texas versus Harold Perkins with A&M, maybe. I don't know how you can say that they've yet to land these type of prospects over LSU, Georgia, and Bama head-to-head. Arch Manning was a head-to-head win over Georgia and Alabama. Derek Williams was a head-to-head win over LSU. Jonte Cook was a head-to-head win over Alabama. CJ Baxter, you go into Florida, Texas is competing with LSU, Georgia, Alabama all the time. You don't get all of those kids. They get some too. And, they're LSU fans. The weird thing is, I think there are LSU fans who are looking at their own in-state recruiting this year, and it looks like Texas is doing better in Louisiana than they're doing in Texas. And it looks like LSU is doing better in Texas than they're doing in LSU in the state of Louisiana. They didn't come out cleanly, but I hope you guys understood what I was saying. Georgia and Alabama, look, what right does Texas even really have to just think about what you typed, Jay? We've yet to land the type of prospects over LSU, Georgia, and Alabama. Those are the last three schools to win a national championship. You don't belong in that class on the football field. Last time we saw Texas, they got wiped off the floor by Washington. The last time we saw Alabama, they wiped up Kansas State on a neutral field. And the last time we saw Georgia, they wiped up TCU and won a national championship. So that Texas is competing and winning a lot of these battles is a credit to this coaching staff. But let's be real. Texas, the whole point about this season is they have to eventually start winning. And I'll say this, one of the things my source has been adamant about Colin Simmons specifically. If he commits to Texas on Thursday and they go 8-4 or 9-3, probably not going to hold on to the kid. So, there's just and consequently, if Texas goes 10-2, 11-1, and LSU, because LSU, big things are expected of LSU. If they go 9-3, 8-4, and Texas has there's just a lot left in this recruitment. But there's look, I'm on the air with you right now because Thursday's a big day. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
I think Texas sources are trying to make it seem like it's not a big deal. And I understand where they're coming from, but I won't look you in the eye and say, Thursday, it's nothing. It's not nothing. It might not be everything, but it's not nothing.
I mean, It's a lot when the top prospect in the state commits to a school that's not yours. So there's ways, and again, this is you and I, in a playful pushback, and against not you, I would say to your source, like, yes, you get it. This is a big deal because now you're playing catch up with somebody, and look, like the more you commit to LSU, like you become whatever program, like you become more ingrained with it. You take more of your unofficials there, you take your officials there, like all those kind of things. And now you've got to hope that something bad happens on the LSU side and something great happens on the Texas side in order to kind of counterbalance it and get back in with somebody. Playing from behind is not the easiest thing. It has happened, Ketch, but it's like a lot of formulas in life. Like,
well, but look, it happened. Look, the same source, right? Last year, 3 days after Colton Vasek committed to Oklahoma, the same source was like, we'll get Colton Vasek. Just watch. When Anthony Hill committed to A&M, same source in September said, just watch. We'll get him in November, December. It's in the bag. The same source also told me, I don't know about Corian Gibson. I hear what everybody else is saying, but I have never been high on Corian Gibson coming to Texas. I can't really explain the reasons because I think it would reveal too closely who this person might be. But I don't know that this source has ever been wrong yet. This source was telling me DeAndre Moore when nobody was giving Texas a chance with DeAndre Moore last year. So I really do trust this source. And this source has been right about these type of things a lot. Like I feel like I needed to defend the source. You're right. This isn't the position that you want to be in. You don't want to constantly have to be chasing and flipping and doing these types of things. But Texas has actually been pretty good at the thing that we're describing. It would be different if they had never had any success at all flipping guys of the ilk of Colin Simmons, but they've done it every year. And in this case, if my source says, don't sweat whatever happens. And the thing is, I will point to this. I've been consistently saying this for more than 6 weeks now. For up until 2 weeks ago, it felt like Texas was going to get Colin Simmons's commitment. And for 6 weeks, I've been 100. Nobody that's watching this right now can deny this. I've constantly said what happens in July and August doesn't matter. This will be a November, December recruitment. There's a lot of things in play that just haven't played out yet. If he commits to Thursday, a month ago, I was telling Texas fans, don't overreact to a commitment in July or early August because it is still on. There is still work to do, and this recruitment won't be decided until November, December. Now I'm saying it, and it sounds like sour grapes. It sounds like the kind of thing that you say to try to let somebody down. Hey, honey, I'm breaking up with you, but we'll still hang out and go to the movies and stuff like that. But I've been consistent with this messaging. My sources constantly said, I don't buy an early recruit commitment. Not here. All Thursday is a placehold. This will be decided in November and December. It sounds like bullshit today.
We should acknowledge it.
I've been saying it since he visited in late June. And I've got receipts. I can go to 2 or 3 or 4 war rooms where I've said that. I've said it consistently. Maybe nobody was paying attention to me. And only now, when it looks like there might be a little bit of bad news around the corner, are people saying, oh, Ketch, that's some BS. You just
okay. Here's why. Can I say why?
Sure.
And not because I'm telling you it's BS. I'm for the sake of the conversation. And you tell me, Ketch, because and here's why it sounds like some sort of explaining, like whatever. What kid who's committed to Texas right now are we saying the same things about? that, you know what, that kid's committed to Texas, but there's still so there's still a lot of work to do.
None of these kids have the profile of Colin Simmons. And what kid did we say that last year other than Anthony Hill?
Maybe Arch? Did we say that there would still be some work to do with Arch?
No, Arch felt pretty.
Yeah. When Arch
shut it
down, he shut it down.
CJ Baxter's a good example. I mean, that kid was going to Florida State for unofficial visits late in the recruiting process. There was fear that kid might flip. He didn't. But the day that he committed, there were a lot of people who were saying, this recruiting battle's not over. You're still going to have to hold off Florida State when it's all said and done. Texas did, but it was a thing. We were definitely reporting like, oh, what is CJ Baxter going to do? He was in Tallahassee this weekend. The kid kept saying, it doesn't matter. I'm going to end up at Texas. But he still kept taking those visits. And, you know, I think the elephant in the room on this one as well, we know, I think, for certainty that Colin Simmons is going to take his official visit to LSU. He can commit to Texas on Thursday. He's still going to LSU for his official in November. That kid will come back to Texas and take a visit as well, potentially as an LSU commitment. If a kid is committed, but he's still taking visits to both schools, is it bullshit if I say, you know what? It's not truly decided yet. I mean, if that kid commits on Thursday and says, no more visits for me, I'm LSU all the way, I will not visit Texas again. I still think he'll visit Texas again. But if he says that, I'll at least go, okay, well, that's emphatic. But I think that kid commits on Thursday, and I think he will openly admit, yeah, I'm going to go catch games in both cities when it's all said and done.
Okay, so we had Ketch. I don't want to have you doing two shows, but we do have some buy or sell things that popped in. So I don't want you working 10 hours today, but here we are. Buy or sell. There are a fair amount of recruits that put Texas in their list for the noise it makes and the social media engagement.
Well, I mean, fair amount is a subjective. There are a lot of kids that include Texas where Texas isn't really actually recruiting them. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've seen a Texas hat on the table for a recruit that Texas isn't really in for. So, buy.
Okay, let's get to some of the other super chats that came in, Blake. Austin just dropped. Yeah, Austin dropped the. Oh yeah, he dropped it, and then if he dropped two, Austin, then you get a second question. If you just drop $9.99 by accident. Buy or sell. Ewers. Okay, well that's just totally off topic. But buy or sells. Ewers drafted next year. Malik named the starter. Manning transfers somewhere to play.
So,
okay. In Austin, well, I'll talk a little bit more about that. I want to stay with the Colin Simmons thing. Do we got any more, Blake? Or we're dead? El Presidente comes with a $20 super chat. He goes, that's why Sark can't afford to go 9-3. Catch. He put that in all caps, so he's yelling at you. Especially with the SEC on the horizon. This has to be a 10-plus win season with a Big 12 championship. Anything less in the season is a complete failure.
Okay.
Is that? Do you have anything to add to that? Anything less is a complete failure? That, of course.
I think there's more. I don't know if I'd use the exclamation marks. I don't know. They could go 9-3 and still win the Big 12. So there's some nuance, but like the general spirit of his point, I think is accurate.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to, and the thing is, and Jay Morrison says this thing in the chat too, the thing is, Ketch, and this is where I'm at, like, and this is where I'm at that frustration range, right? Because you hear all the things that, Well, Texas is going to the SEC, and that's supposed to help recruiting, and that'll definitely help them recruit on a defensive line. And you hear about last season, some momentum, and this year 3 is when it really, you hit the ground running as far as recruiting concerned. And again, maybe it's just an August 8th reaction. And by Thursday afternoon or whenever he commits, we're talking about something totally different. And by December, we're talking about something totally different where we get past signing day and things to that effect. But there's a part that just feels like, I'm speaking for myself as a follower of this, because I don't have to cover recruiting, so I get to follow it as a person who wants to cover a good team. Ketch, I look at it and I'm like, when is this thing happening or is it not happening? Because I keep hearing it's supposed to happen, and I keep hearing all these things.
Can I interrupt you? Breaking news.
Yeah. What?
My source texted me 8 minutes ago while we're in the middle of this.
Yes.
I looked at my phone because I got a 9:00 appointment that I'm late for, and I wondered if somebody, if my tax guy was like missing me. But I can't read the whole text.
Okay.
But it says "hold strong." It's the first 2 words of a text.
What? I don't know what that means.
I think there's a sense that even all the way up going to Thursday, this thing is still fluid.
Okay, fair enough. All right, you need to get out of here, Ketch. I do appreciate you coming in.
I'll have more on this.
Listen. He's not done. For a guy who woke up and was like, I got nothing to say, my mouth hasn't moved, all of a sudden he's now woken up. This is the Jeff Ketchum that you know and love, that you can see here on this channel from 12 to 3 with Chad Hastings. Jeff Ketch gave you a teaser, so clearly, as he texts us with his source today, he's going to have more to discuss. So you have to come back in the noon hour to see what the heck.
If Texas gets this kid, everybody can kiss my ass. I know that.
And listen, I'll have to be on the line too, right? So you can totally pull your Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe, tell me how my ass tastes, and then of course Rod Babers. Coming at 3 o'clock and 3 to 6 today as well. So, Ketch, go ahead and get out of here. We'll catch up with you soon. Make sure you guys check him out. Let's go get a break. Let's go get a break in soon because I've got Danny Davis coming at 9:20. So, so we'll for the Austin American Statesman, we'll switch gears a little bit. We'll start talking about Texas football. This is what happens on OB Live. This is why you're here. This is why you're tuning in. This is why you're kind of halfway working. This is why, or you're doing this while at work, while in the car, whatever it is. People keep asking me, you guys gonna put on another podcast medium? This is the medium. There's so many ways to listen to this thing on YouTube. This has been fun. I've got so much more that I need to get into. All right, I got to come back because I got to get more into it today. Go ahead, Blake. Let's take us to a quick commercial.
This Orangebloods recruiting flashback takes a look at a player that was the first commitment of the TCU class of 2020 and became the last signee of the Texas 2020 recruiting class, with a little stopover in Waco in between. That's right, Texas senior defensive back Jahdae Barron had one hell of a recruitment before eventually developing into one of the most important remaining players from a somewhat disastrous 2020 recruiting class. For those that might not remember, Barron finished as a mid 3-star prospect in the Rivals.com rankings while finishing 79th in the state and 72nd in the country as a cornerback. Should note for the record that I had Barron ranked as a 4-star prospect in my rankings and the number 30 overall prospect in the state. When we look at his recruitment, things really started to heat up following a junior day visit in February of 2019 to TCU and Gary Patterson. After visiting on the junior day in February, Barron committed just a couple of weeks later, citing that Patterson's track record of developing players was a big reason for his decision. Yet a little more than a month later, Barron backed out of his commitment to Patterson, primarily because his offer list started to take off shortly after his commitment, with the likes of Oklahoma State, Tennessee, and Arizona jumping into the mix. Before his decommitment, he actually took an unofficial visit to the 40 acres, although the Longhorns didn't offer. Fast forward to June 22nd, and Barron announced his commitment to Baylor. From that moment on, all the way through the rest of signing day, Barron was solid as a rock to the Bears. even in the aftermath of the departure of Baylor head coach Matt Rule. Things changed for Barron in April as he asked for Baylor to release him from his national letter of intent. Quote, "Thank you to the Baylor Nation for embracing me," he said on Twitter. "Today, I requested an official release from my NLI to Baylor and will begin looking for a new school to pursue my athletic dreams and career goals." 8 days later, Barron committed to Tom Herman's Texas Longhorns. Flipping Barron was a huge win for defensive backs coach Jay Valai, who had only been in Austin for a few months when he landed Barron. Barron was the 20th and final signee to a 2020 recruiting class that finished 16th in the nation. While Bijan Robinson is famously remembered as the headliner of the class, Barron was one of the 3 lowest rated prospects in the entire group, according to Rivals.com. Of the 2 players ranked lower than Barron, one of them was none other than All-America linebacker Jalen Ford.
And welcome back. That was a fun segment with Jeff Ketch. And again, make sure you check him out of noon to 3. I want to know what hold strong means. That just left me as a clip to hold strong. Like, okay, so clearly they're talking to each other. Hold strong for what? Hold strong, stay pat. Like, well, of course, got to hold strong. Like, all those things got to happen. But can I just say something as a recruiting, just kind of a piggybacking off that segment with Ketch and everything that we were talking about. I'm with you guys. I'm with you. Okay. So here, let me explain my stance on this stuff. And I am sitting out here with you guys, and look, I was standing toe to toe, face to face with Jeff Ketchum. When he says it sounds like BS, I was like, yeah, it does. So, Joe, so you know, I'm 100% on your side. And as a person who covers the team, I don't root for teams. You know, I don't root for the Longhorns and per se. Like, I'm not trying to sit there. I don't have like Longhorn things. You know, I don't wear Longhorn gear. I don't have a Longhorn tattoo like Alex does that he had on the show the other day. Like, but I do have a vested interest in their success, because when they're successful, then business is successful. Everyone's happy. You guys are happy. You ladies are happy. Austin's a fun place. The most fun I've ever had covering this team was probably after that Sugar Bowl season, where everyone was just as happy could be. Expectations were just sky high. So I get it. And the thing that frustrates me about the recruiting aspect, as I keep continuing to follow this thing with you guys year after year, I follow it. You know, I help out every once in a while. Every once in a while, I'll have a recruit and I'll take one. I'll take maybe some like a big profile, something, which is fun for me, because I don't like to. I respect recruiting writers. I respect the hell out of recruiting writers, because ain't no damn way I'm gonna let some 18-year-old dictate my life. The hell with that. I'm too grown for that. Like, that can't happen. But they do a good job. It's a hard job, nonetheless. But we keep hearing all these things that Texas just does this, then this is supposed to happen in recruiting. If Texas just does this, then this is supposed to happen in recruiting. And that's why it sounds like the can gets kicked down the road and kicked down the road and kicked down the road, because you just keep hearing like, well, you need a new coach in order to jumpstart recruiting. Okay, get a new coach. And I need new staff to jumpstart recruiting. Oh, okay, well, you got a new staff that's going to jumpstart recruiting, right? Then you need to put like, a product on the field and jumpstart recruiting. Then you need to do, it's like all these things. And like, that's why I asked, like, is Texas supposed to go 15-0? You just want to be in a place. That's where I'm stuck with the Colin Simmons things. And I hope Texas gets them. Like, I hope that come when I do the show on Friday morning, we could just talk. We could all laugh. We'll have some mimosas, right? We'll do a mimosa. We want to do mimosas on Friday if Colin Simmons commits. We'll all have our mimosas on the drink. I mean, some of you guys go a little bit harder than that, but I'll do that. I'll bring out a celebration mimosa Colin Simmons commits. Just a nice little breakfast drink for us. Colin Simmons commits on a Friday, so we'll do Mimosa Fridays to celebrate if Colin Simmons commit. But there's also that part of me that sits there and I'm like, okay, I don't want Texas fans, you guys who now we've become real close, and I feel you. I don't want you guys to have to rationalize why you can't get a Micah Hudson and what that situation is. I don't want you to have to rationalize why you can't get a Colin Simmons and what's going on with all that. Like all these things and these players and like that your Texas should be in on and rationale. Look, if it's all said and done, maybe they get them all. And we just have a big laugh like, man, that was an overreaction. Maybe it ends up being a class like last season because, when I talk to people behind the scenes, they always feel pretty good about that. El Presidente votes for a drunk uncle hour, number one if Colin Simmons commits on Friday. I'm stuck with drunk uncle. I don't know what to do with the alter ego anymore because first of all, there's a morning show. So before drunk uncle was at night. That was a nighttime thing. That was a kind of a wild, kind of crazy thing. This is a daytime audience. It's a little bit different. I can go from that to corporate. Like I know how to pay the bills. I can code switch if I need to. But that being said, I don't know if I can do drunk up on tomorrow on Friday morning. I may have some mimosas though, but I'll definitely have some mimosas, and more than likely, if I have one, I'll have two. I won't be having them today because we have practice tonight, and we actually get a chance to get talk to players at 10 p.m. This evening. So cannot wait for that. And if you can't tell, that's actually sarcasm. But what I was trying to say last thing is, and Danny Davis is going to be here soon from the Austin American Statesman. He and I are just going to talk football and kind of break down some of the things that he's been seeing out there out at training camp, hear a different perspective. I know we've already talked to Alex about it. Jason Suchomel will be on in the next hour. He'll talk recruiting. We'll have another Colin Simmons conversation. Then we'll talk to him and what he's seen from a football standpoint. I still, by the way, have other segments, buy or sell. Someone predicted 10 o'clock. You, my friend, win the prize. You win the prize by going that way, by predicting 10 o'clock. And then, of course, I still got my social media standouts that are going to come as well. So we will absolutely get to that. I think what we'll do is, Blake, after Danny Davis, we'll go into social media standouts. And then at 10 o'clock, as that one predicted, we'll start it off with buy or sell. I'll bring in Jason Suchomel, and then I'll close out the show. And I got so many things to discuss in here as well. So as I wait for Danny to get in here and join us on the show, I'm going to talk about some of the other things that were happened out there. Look like from an edge rusher perspective, I'm going to go back to what Alex Dunlap reported on Orangebloods last night. And so just going to give you guys some more information. If you joined the show a little bit late, thank you. But I'll go ahead and catch you up of some of the things that we had on the show, on our website last night. And let me calm down. I'm really excited and really pumped. So let me bring myself down. Get some road products in me. Jonathan Brooks was back at practice on Monday. DJ Campbell was starting at the right guard position. Cole Hudson was working with the twos. So that happened on Monday. Isaiah Nair was able to get some run with the ones on Monday. Doesn't necessarily mean that he had to be his overall position, but that did happen. And one of the things that Alice did report as well is it looks like Jamon Tapp is the primary guy right now behind Ethan Burke. And he said that person also said that they kind of pointed out in the practice report that some of the inside linebackers were getting utilized more in the spot where they would spin down to the line of scrimmage to do the rush. And Jalen Ford was actually mentioned as a guy to watch in this regard so that we see more for him this year. So, etiquette. So, Danny Davis is here. So, let's go ahead and get ready to go into our Speakeasy Lounge and bring in our guest, Danny Davis from the Austin American Statesman. And good morning, Big Papa. How are you doing today?
I gotta be honest. I think you should just play that music for the entire time I'm supposed to be on. I think that's a lot more of a better listen than this voice.
Yeah. Well, it is it when you come into the Speakeasy Lounge, that is what the good part about it. It puts a smile on just about everyone's face after they hear it. So I would love to just play that in the background, but it probably get a little distracting for all the things that you're going to say, Danny. Danny, I want to know, out of curiosity, are you the person that voted for all the media to meet tonight at 10 p.m. to do interviews with the players? Like, was that your request? Because was that something you were like, John Bianco, here's what I want to do on a Tuesday night. After practice, I really, really want to make sure we get players at 10, which, by the way, usually means like 10:30.
I am a 37 or 30. I think I'm 38 right now. And I have a 2-year-old. My bedtime's like 9 o'clock. I don't stay out late. That's not the life I live anymore. But I guess it's part of the job. And as I always say, my wife's a teacher. She has a lot tougher job. I can't complain too much about a late availability. Although I will. I will complain a lot. I just won't do it publicly.
Well, there's a lot of roofers out there who are out there in 100 and something degree heat right now. Mm-hmm. I keep getting stuff do you get stuff on your door every day from like roofing companies and about hail damage or something like that? I get that a lot. So
I luckily live in a HOA community, so they have to go through them as opposed to me. But every once in a while we'll get someone, wandering around talking about solar or something like that, and I just have to go talk to the president. It's not my deal.
So, okay. So we've had practice. We've had some access last week. Obviously, this week, I believe is no practice access this week as well. So we had some last week. Your thoughts, Danny, on, the first week of practice. We're in the second week, whether it's the things that you saw, things that maybe Sarkisian may have said that have kind of stuck out to you. Kind of give me some of where your head is at, in week 2 of training camp.
Well, obviously, as you know, I mean, they don't show us anything in practice. I mean, we get to see them stretch and go through some drills and stuff like that. But they keep it pretty vanilla in front of us for, obvious reasons. Steve likes to keep a lot of stuff close to the vest. But, I mean, you do get to see some stuff. I think we're all kind of gathered around the quarterbacks to see how they're throwing in some of their, receiver drills and, throwing the running back. And obviously, I think, Quinn, looks the part for what this is. I mean, can you really tell how many strides he's made, based off of, the 20-minute windows we've gotten 3 times this year. I think we're all kind of impressed by Malik and just kind of his arm strength and kind of how he's looked, and, Arch's making his way for what a freshman is supposed to look like. But I think we get a little bit more out of these availabilities. I think I've been impressed. I don't know if impressed is the right word, but I think, Steve seems very dialed in. Granted, he's always kind of a dialed in coach. He kind of keeps things kind of at tunnel vision when he's talking to us. But, even going back to the spring and stuff like that, like he just seems very focused on, 2023. We're not talking about 2024. Even yesterday, the SEC talk aside and realignment talk aside, he was asked a question yesterday about Anthony Hill and kind of his future and, what he projects to position wise down the road. And he wouldn't even address that. He was like, we were talking about 2023, what Anthony Hill can do in 2023. So, the head coach is that dialed in and only wanted to focus on, we're all going to roll our eyes when, we ask questions about, an Alabama question we'll get, talked in at one point and I'll be like, we're just focused on Rice. We got to pay attention to the Owls. But that's just kind of the mindset that they're taking. If the head coach is taking that, I assume the players are taking that mindset as well, which I think is probably welcome news for the Longhorns, because, you do want to focus on 2023, even though, 2024 is going to be a lot of fun with the SEC, but 2023, there's some unfinished business with this conference.
By the way, in the chat on the side of you, it's El Presidente says Danny Davis is the talent of the Austin, means to say American statesman. The rest of the reporters are spares. So hopefully that makes you.
I do not endorse that comment, but I appreciate the love. But I would not.
Danny, We've heard a lot about the new Quinn Ewers and the transformation of Quinn, things that he's done off the field and now seemingly on the field. That burnt orange Kool-Aid's been poured throughout the offseason. Are you buying it? Are you believing in it? Do you believe in the new and improved Quinn Ewers?
I mean, we've seen Quinn. I mean, Quinn does look like a different person than he did last year, and that's not just the cutting off the mullet and then shaving down the hair a little bit. I mean, his body does look better, but I kind of feel Steve's mentioned this a couple times, and I do tend to agree. Like it is a little unfair. I think the way we maybe put these expectations on Quinn, and granted he's a 5-star who's getting plenty of NIL and plenty of hype and plenty of hoopla, but he was an 18-year-old last year. I mean, and there's, we've all been 18 before, and he was having to navigate being the starting quarterback at the University of Texas. He obviously enrolled early at Ohio State, and had to sit, and maybe that wasn't up to his expectations. So I think his maturity and his transformation are probably what you'd expect for someone heading into a third year of college who knows what it is to be the quarterback of the University of Texas now, and that can't just rely on your what got you through at South Lake Carroll. So I think last year was probably a wake-up call on some of the struggles, and having people this is probably the first time in his life that he's had people criticizing him or calling for his job or all that stuff. And that happens to a lot of quarterbacks here, and some quarterbacks handle it very well and some quarterbacks do not handle it very well, and we're going to see where Quinn falls in that. And so I wouldn't say I'm necessarily surprised. You'd expect for there probably to be some come to Jesus moments with Steve in the offseason, and his family and his people that are supporting him back home, kind of telling him that he needs to get together. And also it doesn't hurt when he looks over his shoulders and sees Malik Murphy right behind him. It doesn't hurt when he looks over his shoulders and sees Arch Manning right behind him, because obviously those guys aren't going to be content just sitting on the bench, so they're going to be pushing him. So I wouldn't say I'm surprised. I don't know if I'm going to necessarily buy in the hype. I guess we'll find out about that on September 9th. But he's making the strides that he should make as a third-year quarterback, and we'll see if it actually translates on the field.
Danny Davis from the Austin American Statesman. Danny, one of the things that Sark has been asked a lot, obviously, has been the running back room, and he will beat his chest and point out the numbers that about him always having 1,000-yard back and how that kind of ends up. That's his thing. But they got Jonathan Brooks, they've got Jaden Blue, they've got C.J. Baxter in there, they've got Keelan Robinson, they've got Savion Red. So they've got a lot of guys, but. Are you convinced and sold that at the end of the day that streak continues and Jonathan Brooks emerges as the guy that's 1,000-yard back, or somebody else in that room?
I don't know if I'm necessarily convinced that streak continues. I think maybe in aggregate, you can. I mean, they'll obviously have 1,000 rushing yards as a team, but maybe their top two backs combined for 1,300 or something like that. But I think it's probably going to take a little time just to figure it out. I mean, Jonathan Brooks, we've seen what he can do. It's a talented back, but you figure that CJ Baxter is going to get some run. You figure they're going to figure out ways for Keelan Robinson and Savion Red to get the rock and get some carries and find ways to use them. So I'm not completely convinced that going into this season that the running back who gets the first carry against Rice is going to be the running back who's also carrying the football, getting the lead carries in the Tech game in November. So I'm not convinced that streak continues. I mean, maybe Jonathan Brooks goes into the season and rips off a couple nice runs against Rice and does this thing against Alabama, and they're off and running, and CJ Baxter just chills for a year. But I think it's probably just since there's so many unknowns, and since Bijan and Roschon took up so much of the oxygen in that backfield last year, I just think we just don't know what really any of these backs can do. I mean, we have an idea of Jonathan Brooks. We have an idea of Keelan Robinson, kind of what their skills are. But as far as being the workhorse number one back, I just don't know if that's going to be determined until into the season. And by that point, it might be just too late to get the 1,000-yard rusher. But if you have your lead backs kind of, combined for 1,400 yards or whatever, I mean, that's fine. It's not, you're probably not going to win the Doak Walker this year, but I think they'll be content with their running game and what it can do to complement that passing attack.
On the defensive side of the ball, One of the question marks seems to be, the defensive line, like at least from the outside. You know, your thoughts on, that unit. You've got Barry Sorrell, and he flashed last year. You saw him and felt him at times. He seems to be. We saw him last week. That's a big human being that they have there. We've seen Byron Murphy and of course Tavondre Sweat on that line, and of course Ethan Burke, a kid that you're familiar with from the Austin area as well. That line, though, you concerned about it at all? Danny, because one of my biggest points of contention has been with Keandre gone and Morrow gone, those guys get drafted, but I didn't feel like they set the bar so high where I look at it and say, man, how does anyone even reach that kind of thing? Like, I say that for like a Bijan Robinson, like, hey, that's hard to achieve. I don't necessarily say that about the defensive line, but I'm kind of curious on your take on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you lose two guys to the NFL, and obviously Ovi transferred over to LSU and he was contributing off the edge. I mean, that's those are losses. But you're correct. It's not like as much as we love Snacks, as much as Morrow gave us plenty to write about at different times. It's not like they they weren't Kenneth Sims or any of these UT greats that are going to be going down in the record books on the defensive line. I mean, they are. They were part of the rotation. They got their playing time, but it wasn't like they were, all Americans back there. So it's gonna be up for those other guys to step up. I mean, these are guys who were 4-star prospects in high school. These were guys we've been hearing about, like guys like Alfred Collins for a long time. Tavondre Sweat, we've been hearing about him for a while now. And these guys have made plays. They've had some moments at Texas, but now the spotlight's on them. They're gonna the guys, the Byron Murphys, the Baron Sorrells. I mean, those guys got plenty of playing time and plenty of starts last year, so it's not like they're newcomers. But it's gonna be up to those guys to step up and those young pups to kind of fill into those roles that the backups and the rotation guys were kind of filling last year. And we'll see. But I like the talent on the defensive line. I don't know if they're gonna. And that's another thing too. It's not like this defensive line last year was posting absurd sack numbers or anything like that. I mean, they were okay, and this the defense was a lot improved last year, but it wasn't like this was a shut down defense that everyone was comparing to the '85 Bears or whatever. So this defense has room to grow. I think they have the talent in the trenches, and obviously everyone talks a lot about the coaching down there. So. Well, we'll see. I'm optimistic for the defensive line and the talent down there, but we can't just overlook the losses, of Keandre and Morrow. But I think they can replace them.
Let me ask you 2 more questions, Danny. I'll let you get back to what you need to do. Yesterday, the coaches poll comes out, and Texas is ranked 12th. I was kind of curious your thought when you saw that. Because it's not just the media. These are what the coaches are saying. I mean, I'm curious do you look at this thing and say, okay, I look at Texas as the 12th team in the country with the potential to become a top 10 when it's all said and done?
I think so. I mean, the polls it's a weird predicament you're in, especially when you're considering a school like Texas. This isn't Georgia, this isn't Alabama, this isn't a school you can be like, okay, that's 1 or 2, and no one's going to question your vote. If you wrote Texas too high, you're drinking the Kool-Aid and you're buying the hype. If you voted in 25th or whatever, I mean, I think you're just you can be accused of being a hater or whatever, like you hate Texas or whatever. So yeah, I kind of have to find that weird middle ground. I think the coaches are probably giving Texas kind of the attitude of let's see it. With their 12 ranking, I personally I don't do an AP. I don't have an AP ballot. I probably would have them in the top 10 if I was voting, but I think it's fair to ask Texas to prove it. I mean, I think if you look at their schedule, I think they're not favored in just one game this year, but as you and I both know, and all your fans who are watching this right now, there have been plenty of times where Texas has been favored in games. It just says not happen, and they tend to lose a game they shouldn't. They should win, but this team, there's no reason to believe this team isn't a 10-win team, an 11-win team. There's no reason to think this team isn't the favorite in the Big 12 conference. And if you're the favorite in the Big 12 conference, you should be probably ranked in the top 10 in the preseason polls, because that's, win the Big 12 conference with one loss, and that's going to put you in a good position to possibly get into the playoffs. So I'm not surprised. I'm a little surprised that they were 12th, but I'm not going to be surprised if the AP poll comes out next week and they're ranked in the top 10. It's probably about what they should be, considering their talent, considering what the Big 12 looks like, and considering you just kind of line up their schedule and pick games. I think the Alabama game is really the only game you're going to go into the season thinking, all right, Texas is probably the underdog in this game.
The last one I was going to ask you was, and I know at some point you'll do your preseason predictions, and I'm sure that you will be able to have that. Everyone will be able to cut that out, put it on their wall, and then if it doesn't happen, they know exactly who to go to. That's the thing about Twitter now with bookmarks. I feel like people just bookmark it and just come back to it like a year or so later, 2 years later. Like, how do you remember this? It's like, oh, they bookmarked that thing. But I did want to get your thought process on a potential win total and why, and to play the devil's advocate portion for the conversation. Danny, this is an 8-win team. Ketch will tell you the last time we saw them was a loss against Washington. 5 wins a couple of years ago. There's been one double-digit win season since 2009. So I know you said 10 and 11, but I kind of want to get your gauge as to that number and then as to why.
I'm probably gonna go 10 wins going into the season. I think Alabama's probably a loss, but then I don't know. It's probably not fair because you don't really know what Kansas State's going to look like in November, or what Houston's going to look like in October. But so it's a little tough to kind of project these games so far down the line. But even just looking at their Big 12 schedule, like I just don't see a lot of games where it's like, okay, that's a definite loss for Texas. I see games that I feel are definite wins if everything goes correctly and this team plays like we should expect them to play. But even their road games, I mean, you think Texas may slip up on the road or struggle because it's tougher to play on the road. I mean, they're in Waco, they're at Houston, which isn't expected to, by many to be very good this year. Going to TCU, which I believe is going to be down. I think TCU kind of spent all their goodwill last year. Iowa State, with everything that's going on with their program right now, like who even knows what they're going to look like in November. So you can just kind of look at their schedule. They'll probably lose a game in Big 12 play. Whether that's Tech at the end of the season, although a lot might be on the line at that point. Maybe BYU or Kansas State. Kansas State's still going to be pretty good. So maybe Kansas State comes into Austin and gets a victory. But I don't buy the Kansas hype. I don't think Oklahoma's all of a sudden going to turn around 49-0 into a victory a year later, regardless how good Dylan Gabriel is. So, I mean, I just look at the schedule now, and this Texas team, granted injuries and all that stuff could play a factor. If this Texas team is what I think it is throughout the season, like I don't see a reason why they shouldn't be 10 wins and playing in that Big 12 championship game. But granted, I don't gamble, and I wouldn't suggest anyone take my gambling advice, or else y'all are gonna be broke. But that's just kind of what I'm looking at. But it wouldn't be. I don't think if we're here in December talking about a 7-5 team, it's just going to be okay. Well, here we go again. It's another disappointment. So we've seen this story before. We've seen it play out. But I would guess 10 wins. But once again, I am not. You're not looking at a bookshelf full of gold bars behind me from all my gambling winnings.
Nonetheless, yeah, I have it there. Make sure you guys follow Danny Davis on Twitter at _Danny Davis, which means someone got to jump on you on the Danny Davis one. So _ Danny Davis on Twitter. He's a good follow as well. Also a good friend of mine. Danny, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you. I will see you at 10 o'clock tonight.
10 o'clock tonight. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna need more of this coffee.
Yes, I'll be taking my unhealthy 5-hour energy drinks as well. So, Danny Davis, appreciate you. We're gonna go ahead and cut to just a little bit of a quick commercial break. And when I say commercial, it's not really a break. Commercial. It's the recruiting stuff that you guys all love. When I come back, I'm going to do my social media standouts. So I'm looking forward to that 10 o'clock hour. We'll get to buy or sell. So if you haven't got your buy or sell questions in, go ahead and get that in. And Jason Suchomel will be coming right after that. Social media standouts is next. Let's go ahead and do it.
This Orangebloods recruiting flashback focuses on one of the best recruiting success stories in the history of the Texas program. Ultimately, a prospect that turned into an All-American and a 5-time NFL All-Pro. Earl Thomas was a mid-4-star prospect by rivals when he signed with the Longhorns in 2007, finishing as the nation's number 106th overall prospect, the 19th best prospect in Texas, and the number 12 athlete in the country, according to Rivals.com. While Thomas was obviously very well thought of, he actually ranked behind 3 other defensive backs in his own recruiting class with the Longhorns: Curtis Brown, Ben Wells, and Christian Scott, all ranked ahead of Thomas in the Rivals rankings. On the day that Thomas committed to the Longhorns, he was joined by 5 others: Keenan Robinson, Kyle Hicks, Michael Huey, Ben Wells, and Andre McGaskey. Of that group, Robinson played in the NFL, while he, Hicks, and Huey were all multi-year starters on teams that challenged for national championships. Meanwhile, Thomas was Thomas. That was some kind of weekend for Mack Brown in recruiting. When Thomas committed, he told Jason Suchomel of Orangebloods, quote, "I called Mack Brown today. I let them talk to my dad for a while. My dad wanted to talk to them before I committed. Then I went ahead and made my commitment." My favorite memory of Thomas's recruitment occurred in College Station for the 2006 state 7-on-7 tournament before Thomas's senior season. After watching him play in a group game on the first day of the event, an NFL coach that I knew walked up to me and told me that Thomas was the best player in the entire class. We didn't listen to him when we did the rankings, but we should have. Thomas was a member of the 2007 recruiting class that finished 5th in the nation in the Rivals.com rankings.
All right, it is time. I'm excited about this. One of my favorite segments of the show is our social media standouts, people who stand out and put some really cool things on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever it is on social media, Threads. There's a billion of them. LinkedIn. We haven't done a LinkedIn standout. That would be hilarious. So if you can stand out on LinkedIn, I actually want to see that one. But we do have our social media standouts, and I'm excited about this. Some fun stuff for us to put in there. Go ahead, Blake. Put up the first social media standout for us. This is from Roy Miller. Roy Miller posted this yesterday, and he goes, "Anwar, Richardson, we go back, way back." And this is a Q&A that I did with Roy Miller when he played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I was a beat writer there, and apparently he must have saved this, which is crazy. But it was a story, and it was right around Veterans Day, and I used to do this cool like Q&A kind of things and sometimes I would ask off the wall questions, but then when there were serious things that were going on, I would ask it. So yes, I covered him when he got there to Tampa, and he saved that thing. And Roy was a really good dude, from what you guys remember. Like, you talk about like a small world, a small circle. In fact, when I was in Tampa covering the Buccaneers, I covered some guys that you would know: Roy Miller, Tim Crowder, and Chris Sims. I covered Chris Sims when he was there in Tampa when he got drafted with the Tampa Bay Buccaneer organization. I was actually there covering that game where he had, I think there was the spleen, and we come to find out that I think they may have originally misdiagnosed him or didn't understand the severity of it, the medical staff on the sidelines. And then he goes and has to have like this emergency surgery afterwards, where like Chris could have actually literally died in the game, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, I covered Chris back then, and he was again, you guys know him from here. But yeah, those are the 3 Texas guys that I remember covering. Leonard Davis, when I was in Detroit. That was towards the tail end of his career. I covered Leonard Davis. Big human being. My gosh. I mean, that guy was massive. I'm not very few. I haven't seen as guys as big as him. But yes, Roy Miller, really, really good dude. Really good. I think Roy, after that, I think he may have went and played in Jacksonville. And I think that's maybe when he's ended his career there. He's now a defensive coordinator for a high school there in Jacksonville. So I got to get Roy on the show at some point. And by the way, yes, if you guys haven't hit the like button, please. Should I have to ask? But if I have to ask, then please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe to all that. But yeah, Roy Miller, really, really good dude. All right, let's put up another one, Blake. Let's go to one of our social media standouts. Who else we got? Yes. Check this thing out. Pleased to announce the 2023 Distinguished Alumnus Award winners. These Longhorns have made significant achievements in their career and service to the industry. And these are part of the Texas Exes. And as you guys may can see, a familiar face in there. It's Ricky Williams. That's right. I'm pulling this up here on my phone. But, for the things that Ricky was able to achieve, of course, you guys know all the football stuff, so I don't have to tell you all that. But after retiring, he was assistant coach at the University of Incarnate Word and a football analyst for, of course, the Longhorn Network. He's a wellness expert, entrepreneur, advocate, who is the CEO of, is it Lila Astrology or Lila Astrology? I'm not quite sure which one it is. The co-founder of Real Wellness Herbal and the founder of Heisman. Like, props to Ricky for what he was able to do and him being honored by the University of Texas. And man, it's kind of like, man, when you look at what Ricky dealt with 2023 vision, as opposed to 2020, with 2023 vision, boy, so it seems like that. It seems so petty now. It seems like so petty and unfortunate what he had to go through when you consider. I mean, we've got rogue products, we got all kinds of things and all that, and to be forced to make a choice, and now everyone's like, oh yeah, like no biggie. You're like, well, damn. I wish he could get those years back. Like, he deserves to have those years, and it's unfortunate what happened. But I am glad that he's lived long enough for people to come around, for people to basically give him his roses now, for him to be celebrated and honored and really become the entrepreneur, which is really pretty cool, really respectful of him. So props to you, Ricky Williams. You absolutely deserve all of the accolades and respect that you're getting. And I'm so glad that the Texas Exes have acknowledging you as a distinguished alumnus. All right, Blake, give us another one here. Let's go ahead. And Mike, I should get Ricky on here at some point. Mina Kimes. I love all her content. Just think she's, I think very highly of her. I think she's awesome. Love to have her on the show at some point. Well, so Tex Ags tweets out something, and it's Jimbo Fisher, talking about conference realignment. And Jimbo Fisher's quote is, unfortunately, we're in a time now that everybody is fighting over the dollar. And Mina, so subtly, but such in a gangster way, points out a headline that says Jimbo Fisher leaves FSU to accept a huge contract to coach at Texas A&M. And the mic drop is there. Right? That's the mic drop right there. And this is why I have this is why I think coaches should just shut their mouths about conference realignment, about NIL, all that kind of stuff. Don't talk about it, because you're talking about, oh, we're fighting over the dollar. Everyone's fighting over the dollar, while these coaches, you're making $100 million. You literally left a program you left the ACC to go to Texas A&M to get $100 million. You can't get fired, and you really want to talk about, man, it's unfortunate. I wish these coaches would shut up. I just wish they would stop talking about it, especially as relates to NIL. NIL one's the one that gets on my nerves. Like, if there's one thing that gets on my nerves, it's the NIL conversation. I don't want to hear about millionaires getting in the pockets of these young people. Get out their pockets. Get out of their pockets. Well, I don't know. They should get been paid that much. Stop it. Stop it. Well, I don't know if they should be. Can they handle that kind of money at a young? Shut up. Don't worry about what they do. Nobody worries about any other young person in any other walk of life. I don't hear anybody saying about use YouTubers. Man, I don't know how that YouTuber is going to handle all that money. Nobody says that. Nobody says it about that. Nobody said it about who was that little kid that has all the products and stuff like that. It's not Thomas, but this little kid that used to have those things. And nobody said anything about. Nobody says anything about YouTubers. Let these kids be. Don't worry about conference realignment. Like, conference realignment needs to happen for these programs to continue. So it is fine. And you know what? You can say like, oh, it's unfortunate, but you know what? Football pays the bills. So guess what? Conferences and schools need to go so football can pay the bills for all the other sports that don't pay the bills. So yes, you got to join conferences. It's not just simply joining a conference. This is where people dumb down the conversation. It gets on my nerves. It's not simply just joining a conference for quote unquote money for people to just go spend and just throw in the fireplace in the wintertime because they just got so much money to burn. It's to be able to pay for the tennises of the world and the swimmings of the world and the rowing teams and the soccer teams and all the quote unquote non-revenue sports that are out there. You need football. And so, yeah, there may be a little bit of sacrifice. You may have players who are going to have to fly across country in order for that thing to happen, but you're going to be flying across country to be able to play a sport that you love in college. Because if not, then you'll be at home. And by the way, no one's forcing you to fly across country. You don't have to. Just go to this whole thing, this argument, like, oh, these kids got to fly across country. You know what? They don't have to. Go to Division III school. Go to the Division III school, play locally. You never have to worry about travel. Problem solved. It's simple. It's simple. I hate these coaches. I just wish they would just shut up. Just, it's funny. Last thing I'll say. We're in this thing where we don't want like young people and people to speak out on politics and things that are going on in the world and so on and so forth, and to just stick to sports. Well, some of these coaches just need to stick to their sport, specifically their team, and just shut up about everything else. Sometimes the more Jimbo Fisher talks, the more I'm just like, man, you talk too much. You talk too much. All right, give me another social media standout. Give me another one, man. Give me another one, Blake. Having fun with this. Good job, Mina. Good job. Excellent job. So the Jaguars revealed this thing yesterday. I don't know if you guys caught this thing on social media, but in their practice facilities, they have this thing that measures. You see that white thing above the filter? They've got this thing where apparently they'll let you know if you're hydrated, and the thing will illuminate. It'll show you green. There'll be a middle colored. If there's a red, then they'll go ahead and go to the staff. And I don't know who is there a sensor? Like, so apparently then the medical staff knows, like, okay, maybe you need an IV or something because you're really dehydrated. But this is a way for them to monitor the player's urine in order to know, like, do they need to hydrate or not? And again, I don't know who does it get sent to? Like, I don't know quite how they disseminate the information. But then my only thought to that was like, well, damn, Tom Herman was the pioneer, because Tom Herman came out with the P chart. He came out with a P chart. At least you're supposed to measure your own urine. I don't know about this other thing. Probably detects drugs and stuff that too. I probably wouldn't use that if I was one of the Jaguars players. It's like the government trying to get in your business. Tom Herman was a pioneer. Tom Herman came out with the P chart. Tom Herman was that guy that was the pioneer that had it there. And everyone made fun of Tom and said, oh man, he's getting all these players' business and the P chart. Tom, and now look, they've got it automated. Tom, I sure hope you are in on this company. I am hoping you're making some money off of this, Tom. Like, you deserve. I hope you look as you're sitting there at FAU and you're saying to yourself, man, that was my idea. I hope Tom Herman went on Shark Tank with this idea. I want Tom Herman. I wish like Tom Herman standing in front of Mark Cuban on Shark Tank pitching this idea for that urinal thing. And they were like, you know what? That's pretty good. You know, we could use that with the Mavericks. I'll give you $2 million for 2%. No, I love Shark Tank. That's pretty awesome. Right. We've got two more. Tom, you're a pioneer. You were just a man before your time, Tom. You were just so far ahead of the grade. Like that, Tom, that's just what it is, man. You're like Ricky. You just like him, man. You understood urine and the importance of urine color before anybody else did, man. Like, Tom, you understand it, man. And I'm with you, Tom. I appreciate everything that you did. All right, let's do two more social media standouts. Let's get those things knocked out. Blake, what's the other one? Oh, man, this is fascinating. So apparently, Jawan Mitchell went back in the transfer portal. If you guys remember, you guys are Texas fans, this is going to blow your mind that Jawan Mitchell is in the transfer portal again. So first and foremost, these are my social media standouts because props to Horn Sports for being able to get the timeline. And it must have taken them like an hour to do all the research. I'm joking. But look, let me start on the other side of the screen. So let's start from his high school. And I kind of jump back and forth. So he goes and starts at Mater D. Then he goes to Milford Academy Prep. Then he goes to Butler Community College. He commits apparently to Rutgers. He commits to Minnesota. And then eventually he's commits to Texas. So actually, let me go to the other side. So he commits to Minnesota, then decommits from Minnesota. He commits to Texas in 2019. He enters the transfer portal in 2020, withdraws from the transfer portal a couple of weeks later, or a couple of days later, if I remember correctly. 2021, he enters the transfer portal again. Then he goes to Tennessee. Then 2023, he goes to the portal again. Then he transfers to Arizona State. And now he's in the portal again. What? Bro, you thought El Presidente and I had commitment problems. My goodness, I don't have time to add up all the schools that he's gone to from high school to college. My man ain't hanging around for nothing. But my dude is like, yo, I'm out. Like, my man stays pat. My man, what is that movie where you can't get attached to something that you can't leave within that short period of time? What was that movie called? That's what Jawan Mitchell is. I don't know. Like you said, when someone asked me to go to Florida, and I don't know where he's going to go and how old is he at this point? He started in 2019. He's 2023 right now. That's a long time. All right, one more social media standout. Okay, let's get to him, and then we'll get to buy and sell on the other side of the break. One more social media standout. Dr. April Finkley, Justice Finkley's mom, she said preschool Meet the Teacher was a success. I can't believe we started over from scratch. LOL. Boss baby. Dr. Finkley, to you and your husband, I 100% understand. You got to think about this. They've got a kid who is in college right now, and now they also have a preschooler. And I'm not laughing at you. I identify with you because we're probably around the same age, more than likely. So I didn't start early that way. I've got a kid. I'm 49 years old. Hear me now. I turned 50 at the end of this year. I've got a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old that's about to go into kindergarten. If there's anybody who can sympathize and empathize with you, it's the person who in 3 months turns 50 years old and my kid goes to kindergarten. Do that math. That means when he graduates in another, 13 years or so, that I'm 63 at his high school graduation. Like, I'm literally I am literally that old. They're like, hey, man, your grandpa came to your graduation. No, that's my dad. I'm like, oh, that's me. That's me. So, Dr. Featley, I feel you. Hey, at some point when you guys come to Texas, hey, if you need a playmate, my kid is here. Well, he'll be here soon. He'll be back in the end of this year. But I got you. I've got you covered. We can be the old folks. We can be chilling. We're going to be like that. And it's so funny because when I go to these schools, like the parents are all like their, younger 30s and everything. Like they're young. They're young. And here I am with a 5-year-old. Now imagine this. Imagine being the person who's closing in on 50 with a 5-year-old dating. Like all their kids are graduated, and I'm like, man, I'm about. I gotta pack these Cheerios and these goldfish. I gotta get my little man ready for school, and then after I give them some chicken nuggets and some French fries at 9, and then give them some little dessert, then maybe I can go see you or something like that. Like I give them some melatonin. Like there's so many women who are my age are like, yo, I've been there, done that. Like I gotta. So I feel you, 100% feel you. Good luck to little man in preschool this year. All right, let's do another small just pause for the cause, and when we'll come back, we will do buy or sell. Then Jason Suchomel will be in here. We'll talk more recruiting. We'll talk a little bit more Colin Simmons, a little bit more football stuff, and then we'll go ahead and wrap that thing up. So let's go ahead and take a quick pause. We'll be right back.
This Orangebloods recruiting flashback focuses on the player generally considered to be the greatest Longhorn football player of all time. Vince Young was a 5-star prospect by rivals when he signed with the Longhorns in 2002, finishing as the #1 overall player in the nation. 20 plus years later, the two things that stand out the most about Young's recruitment was how much ground the Longhorns made up in a blink of an eye. Weeks before his senior season began in 2001, his mother reported that Texas was out. Quote, "We ruled out Texas as Vincent has decided that he probably won't stay in the state of Texas to play in college," Miss Young said. In just a matter of months following that statement by his mom, Vince Young was pretty much wrapped up to go to Texas. The other thing that stands out about Young's recruitment was just how big he was in the city of Houston. I went to a playoff game with Madison against Hightower in the Astrodome, and opposing fans were jumping up in the stands over the excitement that Young was creating. I wrote for Orangebloods.com at the time, quote, "At that point, the Astrodome crowd started to go crazy. People in the Hightower section were high-fiving each other, laughing, and screaming in amazement," end quote. It was unlike anything I've ever seen before or since. On the day he committed to the Longhorns in January, Vince said, quote, "There's a lot of love down there at Texas, and that's what I was looking for before I visited. They made my mom smile, and that's all I needed to see. I committed to them this afternoon." Young was the bell cow of a 2002 recruiting class that was ranked first in the nation and is regarded as one of the best in the history of the school. That class signed 6 5-star prospects, which also included Justin Blaylock and Roderick Wright. Ultimately, Young's class was the foundation of the 2005 national championship team.
All right, welcome to the 10 o'clock hour number 3. Oh, thank you for hanging in here so long. We obviously had Jeff Ketchum breaking down Colin Simmons, everything that's going on with that. So if you're joining us late, feel free to rewatch it. Of course, you can watch Jeff Ketchum. He'll be him and Chad Hastings. They'll be going on from 12 to 3 today. And then after that, we'll have Rod Babers from 3 to 6. So we'll have that. All right. You guys absolutely called it. You called it at the 8 o'clock hour. You said buy and sell ain't going to happen until 10 o'clock. Once you guys knew Ketch and I were going to start talking, you knew what it was. So absolutely, you're 100% on point. You're correct. But it's time for buy or sell, though. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's go ahead and get into the questions, what everyone has. Blake, I don't know how many you have. I don't know how many you have stored up. But let's go ahead and start talking to some people. Let's interact and enjoy ourselves. Buy or sell from Austin Sellers. Okay. Buy or sell? Oh, that's right. This is from earlier. I wanted to address it, Austin. Yes, because you gave it to us during the Colin Simmons segment, and it was just a little out of place, and so I wanted to make sure I had it here. So yes, I got you now. Buy or sell? Ewers drafted next year. Malik named the starter. Manning transfers somewhere to play. I'm going to sell that one, Austin. And so I'm going to tell you the parts that I buy. I buy Ewers being drafted next year. That to me is going to happen. Like I'm not that I've got. I feel like he's going to have a good season this year. I feel like Quinn's going to get drafted. Like I feel like there's too many things working in his favor, and so I expect that to happen. I expect that to occur. Where I struggle is the last two things: Malik being named the starter, and then of course, Arch transferring. I think the challenge is this, and this is going to be this is the challenge for Steve Sarkisian. Ultimately, Steve Sarkisian is judged off of wins and losses. That of course is the ultimate of what he's always going to be judged off of. But he will be judged on Arch Manning's success in college. That is huge. And ultimately, I don't know how he somehow has Malik as the starter and then Arch. I don't know how you convince Arch to hang around for 2 seasons and not play. Now, idealistically, sure, maybe in a hypothetical world that can happen, but that seems problematic at the end of the day. I think what we have to wrap our heads around, and this is what you have to wrap your heads around as a Texas fan, you have a good problem right now. It's a problem, but it's a good problem. The problem is there's a lot of talent, right? So the good news is there's a lot of talent. The bad news is there's a lot of talent. So the good news is, yes, you're stacked at the receiver room, you're stacked in the quarterback room, you're stacked in the O-line room, right? You're stacked, probably from a defensive perspective, you're definitely stacked on it as far as DBs are concerned. Absolutely. You're stacked in that position, right? You feel good about like the linebacker position, a lot of the young talent that's there. So you feel good and you're stacked in a lot of different positions. The 2 deep is there. It's also the problem because people are going to want to play. And so what you as a Texas fan are going to have to start getting used to and wrapping your head around is that players are going to leave. It's just going to happen. Players are going to leave. They're going to leave because they're going to say to themselves, I want to go somewhere else and get a chance and an opportunity. It's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to have because you're going to have good players that leave for sure. But that's what happens at the Georgias of the world and the Alabamas of the world and so on and so forth. Like players leave because they want that. So somebody potentially, I don't know. There's no way they just told Malik like, hey, we know that you had some schools that were interested in you. We know that there's some opportunities that were there for you to transfer. He had to get some sort of promises. But so did Arch. And it may be, and if you feel like the promise is something it's just simplistic as you get a chance to compete for the starting position, maybe. I feel like it's got to be more to that. And ultimately, I feel like Arch starting and playing is probably a little bit more important to how Steve Sarkisian is viewed or judged than Malik. Because at that point, you would have to say, like, well, we thought we got this 5-star and he's okay, but he's just not ready. And maybe, but this is where I would sell that one for me, Austin. I think at the end of the day, if there's anyone that would probably, in your scenario, if someone leaves, I think it's probably would end up being Malik when it's all said and done in that scenario. It's just sports. 05. Anthony Hill, buy or sell. Anthony Hill is drafted higher than Jalen Ford when it's all said and done. Well, I mean, I look at Jalen Ford as kind of like a 3rd-round pick at this moment. I don't see him as a second rounder. And here, and the reason why is nothing disrespectful. I mean, but think about Malik Jefferson and how good he was. He was a third round pick. Think about DeMarvion Overshawn and how good he was. He was a third round pick. So you're Jalen Ford going higher than third. Like, I'm just going through recent trends and recent history. So Anthony Hill probably trends, especially as being a 5-star higher. So I'll buy that. As a 5-star, he would probably trend. Now Malik was a 5-star too. So it's a hell of a question, to be quite honest with you, because I don't know when it's all said and done, but I think Anthony Hill, based off of all the metrics, Anthony Hill is probably going to be a person that plays a lot as a freshman. I don't think he'll have to wait as long. So I'm going to buy that one. As like Jalen Ford had to wait his turn, I don't think he'll have to wait that long. So I'm definitely going to buy on that. Good question, though. Great question. And bookmark that for me is Just Sports 05, because I want to be able to come back to that in a few years. So I just want that's when Jalen Ford gets drafted. Now that's number one, and then we'll see what happens. 05. Now, Jalen Ford, I will say this. If Jalen Ford ends up being a first-round pick, then I'm going to sell. Because if he ends up surprising me and becomes a first-round pick, I'm going to say, oh, snap, I didn't see that one coming. Buy or sell? If you're going to only watch episode 1 of Hard Knocks or the Johnny Manziel documentary, you're riding with Johnny football. I'm going to sell. I would rather watch Hard Knocks. The Johnny Manziel thing has never interested me, to be quite honest with you. I've never been fascinated by him. I've never thought, I've always thought he was, a good college quarterback, but being a good college quarterback doesn't necessarily transfer into a pro. And then, I don't know, people who go through their personal things in life and their personal struggles, I don't necessarily like you always heard like the rumors about Johnny Manziel. And I think around that time I was covering the NFL. So, you always heard things about him and how be out, or rumors about, partying and things to that effect. And I don't know, train wrecks don't really do it for me. I will try to watch a Johnny Manziel documentary at some point, but I would probably start off first by watching Hard Knocks, because that's just kind of what I'm used to. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the quarterback series that was on Netflix. I thought that was really good, really well done. It enjoys learning about Patrick Mahomes. And I like that. But Johnny football doesn't do it for me. I don't know what it is. There's not much that really ever interested me. All this kind of stuff, I just thought it was like weak ass showmanship when it was all said and done. So I don't know. There's usually when you go by, an accident, I'm not that person that needs to slow down and look. I just say a quick prayer and hope for the best for the person in the car. Alan says, buy or sell? If we beat Alabama, we go 12-0. I'll buy. And the reason why I'll buy that, Alan, and I just wanted to think about it first before I just jumped into an answer and I just said whatever first came into my mind. I think if you beat Alabama, the confidence is there to just finish the thing. Like, I think that's the confidence builder that everyone would need to know, like, hey, beating Kansas State is one thing, and beating Butler is another thing. Baylor is another thing, and beating some of these other programs that would be good. But when it's all said and done, if you can beat Bama, and you can beat one of the top programs in the country, and knowing that you should have beat them last year, and knowing if you could complete the whole thing this year, then absolutely. Then this team knows, like, this is where it is. Now look, there's always going to be crazy games. Texas OU is going to be always a crazy game. That's going to happen. There's games on the road. You just never know, like, how that may go. But if this team stays healthy, sure, I can see that. If you beat Bama, then I can see the confidence just going through the roof with this team, because I feel that they have the confidence now, but they just need something to just be the reward for all the hard work. Going on the road, Tuscaloosa. I mean, at that point, if you're a coach at Texas, you could literally do the coming to America and like, stand on one leg. You can tell the coaches stand on one leg, bark like a dog, big dog, woof, woof, and they'll do it. They'll do it because they'll believe in you and everything that you've said, and there'll be no questioning this program going forward. So good question, Alan. Kyle gets in here. Buy or sell? We will see a lot of players transfer out due to a lack of playing time, especially at the wide receiver and running back room at the end of the season. Buy. It's kind of what I was just alluding to there, Kyle. It's the good problem and the bad problem. The good problem is you got a lot of talent. The bad problem is you got a lot of talent. And so, yeah, I think at some point when you got, 8 receivers that they feel like can play, but only 5 are getting, run, and the other 3 are kind of in the mix, like, yeah, that's tough. Now, listen, if Xavier Worthy goes pro and AD Mitchell goes pro, and that opens up the opportunity, like, you may not have that now. Like, if both of those guys go, yeah, you might not have as much in the wide receiver room, but the running back room, oh, absolutely. I can see that. I mean, because there's too much, there's good talent, there's young talent. The Jaden Blue would be a person that I would look at this year and I'd say, all right, let's see how much he plays, because I think that's important. That matters. CJ Baxter maybe not as much as a freshman, but absolutely. Like, does Jonathan Brooks take it? Because Jaden Blue has had a good offseason. So I'm with you. What happens with Savion Red? If he's just kind of situational. At some point, he's going to say, you know what, I want to play. So I will 100% buy that you see attrition, but I don't think it won't be attrition that kills the team, but it'll definitely be attrition nonetheless. Go ahead and give me another one, Blake. Give me another one. Give me one. Christy, how are you doing, Christy? Christy says, buy or sell. OB has a season opening happy hour on Friday night before the first game. Buy. Absolutely, Christy. Buy. Absolutely. Now, it's just a matter of where it's going to be. We did one. Blake, what's the name of where we did one of our happy hours before? What was the name of that Pint House Brewery? That was down south. So that's a possibility to return to that Pint House Brewery. We also got a bar? You want an OB happy hour that's there? I mean, contact me, Anwar at Orangebloods.com. We can make it happen at your spot. I'm looking at your cover 2. I'm looking at your cover 3. Where you guys at? So I'm looking at your Pint House. Like, give us the invite. But absolutely the night, especially because it's an afternoon game. So we got plenty of time to recover. Yeah, let's do it. Christy, great. Now, here's the thing. Are you going to be there if we do it? Don't ask the question and not show up. All right. So if we do this and not this happy hour, we go through the planning portion of it, then we need to do that. But I know we do need a place that has cocktails. So because I do get that as well, because not everyone's a beer drinker, and I'm with you on that one. So we'll find a spot. We'll make it happen. I'll commit to it. I'll work out the details. But if you guys got a spot that's an essential location in Austin, you want to have us around, and you would just make some money on a Friday night and secure us, then absolutely. Anwar at Orangebloods.com. Okay. Speaking of drinking beer, Jason Suchomel will be here in just a short minute. Blake, go ahead and do a quick pause. We'll do a quick pause, and then we'll come back, and we'll have Jason Suchomel in here soon.
One of our very first Orange Bloods recruiting flashbacks will focus on a player that went on to become one of the best running backs in the history of the sport. Jamal Charles was a high 4-star prospect by Rivals.com when he signed with the Longhorns in 2005, finishing number 57 overall in the Rivals 100 and number 4 overall in the state of Texas. Personally, I had Jamal Charles as a 5-star prospect on my Lone Star Recruiting Top 100 list, but I have to admit that I wasn't head over heels in love with him the first time I watched his junior film as a prospect. It's hard for me to admit this out loud, but I actually had questions about his speed and whether he was really as fast as his track exploits suggested he was. Ultimately, he was scoring touchdowns as a junior at Memorial by such wide margins that he really never had to open up his speed on the field as much as he just seemed to coast. It didn't take me long to figure out that questioning his speed was one of the dumbest things I've ever done while working in this industry, and that's probably saying something. The most dramatic part of his recruitment might have come on the day he decided to commit to the Longhorns, because when he picked up the phone to call running backs coach Mike Haywood, no one was there to take the call. Charles told Jason Suchomel of Orangebloods.com that he would call Mac Brown back the next day and make it official. And that's exactly what he did. The hit rate for the class was exceptional, as Charles was joined by the likes of Henry Melton, Roy Miller, Jermichael Finley, Roderick Muckleroy, Quan Cosby, Chris Hall, Charlie Tanner, and of course, Colt McCoy. When it's all said and done, and you look back at the last quarter century of Rivals.com ranking prospects, Jamaal Charles is one of the greatest Longhorn prospects that ever lived.
He's also was really great on my fantasy football teams when I had him as well. So shout out to you, Jamaal Charles. You're one of those people that I will always love for what you were able to do and helping me in my fantasy football teams win championships back in the day. It's been a really long time. And the older you get, and the harder it is to get as pumped up about, at least prepare for fantasy football. I just feel like I'm just giving my money away in my sacrificial lamb. But all right, let's go ahead and get ready for the Speakeasy Lounge. Let's go ahead and play the music, Blake, so we can bring in my guy, Jason Suchomel. Jason, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Anwar. I'm still wife free, so hanging in there, man. The house hadn't burned down. Kids are still alive. Dogs are getting fed. All good, brother.
So how are you feeding yourself right now? Are you the cook of the house? Is your wife the cook of the house? Like
a little bit of both. I actually grilled chicken last night, and as you alluded to, I had a couple cold beers, and I was gotta have a beer when you're grilling, right? So
sure.
Cooked some chicken tonight. I got some pre-made thing. I'm frozen meal I'll put in the oven for the kids, and like I said, they're surviving. That's all I need right now. So,
all right. Well, all right. Let's talk about surviving, and we need to know Texas fans are going to be able to survive Thursday. And as far as Colin Simmons, it'll be a hell of a segue there. So I had Ketch on earlier. I don't know if you had a chance to catch him or not. And I know you've been reporting on the Colin Simmons things as well, and you've been talking to your sources. So you tell me what you've been hearing, because I know what Ketch reported last night. I want to hear what you've been hearing as relates to Colin Simmons as we get closer to his announcement.
Surprisingly quiet, if I'm being honest. Colin and his family have kind of closed up their circle. Announcement, of course, Thursday at 2. With Colin, Anwar, it's been this way pretty much his entire recruitment. You're taking little bits and pieces, and you're trying to put an entire puzzle together, and you're missing probably 75% of the puzzle pieces. So it's pretty tough. I'm leaning on other reporters and their contacts within the LSU program, or just with other people around the state. Hey, here's what they're hearing. I'm trying to put it together. My best information, I don't think anybody knows what Colin's going to do. That includes people in Austin. And I'm pretty sure that includes people in Baton Rouge. They kind of have their hunch, and Colin's saying the right things and like giving both sides kind of warm, fuzzy feelings, but I don't think anybody truly knows. And I'll just say it, Anwar. I have not said this anywhere else. I haven't said it on Orangebloods, so I'm going to say it to you first. I've had Texas as the leader, okay, for a while, certainly after his official visit in June. I probably had it 60-40, 65-35. I never kind of went all in the way Ketch probably likes to do. I'm a little bit more, I hedge my bets a little bit more. Right now, man, I just got something in my stomach that makes me think maybe it's going to be LSU. The fact that people in Austin feel good, but they don't know That
Mhm.
has me a little bit worried. Okay, they're kind of guessing too, I get the sense. So, I just feel like if Colin was definitely going to Texas, people in Austin should know that. They wouldn't leak it, I don't think, but I think everybody's just kind of grasping at straws a little bit, and that has me a little bit alarmed from a Texas perspective. So I don't know, man. My gut is kind of swinging back towards LSU as we sit here. What, like a little more than 48 hours away from his announcement?
I mean, now explain it to me, Jason, because there seems to be some sort of like good relationship that Colin Simmons has not only with the LSU staff, but the city of Baton Rouge. Like it seems to be something that they've somehow have him enamored, for lack of better terms. What did that happen when maybe on recently on his visits? Because it seemed to be trending Texas. Then it takes the LSU visit, and then it seems to be like, whoa, wait a second. Or has LSU always just been in the picture, and maybe out of my burnt, orange glasses that maybe a lot of people here may have, saw it a little bit differently?
Yeah, LSU's definitely always been in the picture. I do think this most recent visit in late July kind of refreshed his memory, if you will. It had been a while since he'd been down there. Anwar, I remember the first time I talked to Colin, and then I should have been prepared and had this quote pulled up if I didn't know where we're going here. But when I talked to him about LSU the first time, this was over a phone call, right? You could just hear a different tone in his voice. And this is going back like a year and a half. But just the way, I think the quote was something like, "What's not to love about LSU?" I mean, he just spoke differently about LSU than he did Texas or any other program at the time. It was super early in the process. I didn't make too much of it. But I've said, like, all along, like, if you could search on Orangebloods message board, Colin Simmons, a post by me with Colin Simmons' name, I've always said, hey, I think it's LSU. I think it's going to be LSU. I think it's going to be LSU, until he took that Texas official visit. Texas knocked it out of the park there. We're hearing great things behind the scenes. That was really the first time I ever came out and said, okay, I think it's going to be Texas. I felt that way for the better part of a month. Then he goes to LSU again in late July, right before the dead period kicked back in August, and kind of just reaffirm some of those early thoughts that he had about, oh man, it's a great town. It's a small town, but it's just a lot of fun there. And he just loves the people there and the connections there. So yeah, LSU has always been a threat, kind of faded a little bit. And then they're certainly surging here at the end. Is it going to be enough to take the tape at the finish line? I don't really have an answer. I don't think anybody does. It's going to make Thursday interesting. I'll tell you what, because, maybe we get word between now and Thursday, but as it stands now, I'm going to be kind of in the dark like everybody else, just anxiously awaiting his announcement. So it should be exciting. But I know you had Ketch on. I don't know what all y'all talked about, but I'm sure he probably said the similar thing. But even whatever happens on Thursday, this one's not over, man. This thing's it's gonna have some swings all the way until December, maybe even past that until he enrolls. So yeah, so Thursday will be exciting, but that race is not over on Thursday.
Yeah, that's exactly, you read my mind, because that's what he did say. And that like at the end of the day, and he brought up the guys that Texas has been able to flip in the last recruiting cycle, right? He brought up Avasic, flipping out from Oklahoma. There was a couple of other guys that he brought up that had flipped last year. But I've asked you this before, and you and I've had this conversation before, Jason, and there is something to be said from playing from ahead as opposed to playing from behind, right? And so even if the things may not be over, you can't live your life off of feeling like you're just going to flip guys when it's all said and done. Like there's still something to be said for that. And I guess the question really becomes, and then does it become the elephant in the room? And I asked Ketch this, I'll ask the same thing to you. I mean, if his love is, clearly LSU, if that's what it ends up being, we'll find out. It may be all a bunch of overreaction at this moment. Does it just simply come down to NIL? Is just to simplify it? Is that what we'll be talking about?
Well, it's a good question and a few points there. So a lot of times in recruiting, Anwar, it does just come back to your first love. Okay. I mean, yeah, you look at, okay, this is such a great opportunity and they can present this, and this, but I just love this school and I have for a long time. And that's usually where a recruit ends up going, kind of follows his heart. So if that's true, then LSU just might be the pick on Thursday. If we're talking NIL, Texas, from what we've heard, has presented a better NIL opportunity or better, package, or that will present better opportunities for him when he's on campus. I don't know how big the discrepancy is there, but we feel pretty comfortable in our reporting that Texas will have better NIL opportunities for Colin Simmons. But I'll tell you what, I talked to an LSU reporter who I've known for 2 decades or better. And he and I were talking, we're all kind of just bouncing what we're hearing off each other, again, trying to put this thing together. And he talked to one of his sources, and it was at practice actually, and his source kind of smiled and said to him, "It ain't all about NIL." Speaking specifically about Colin Simmons. So yes, I do feel comfortable that Texas has a very strong and stronger than LSU NIL package, but there's some chatter out there that this decision is not all based on NIL.
So the question is, what's her name? Who did he meet that he's fallen in love with? What's her name?
Hey, well, I know that he did go to a function that another network put on where they brought in a bunch of athletes, and they had a bunch of NIL talk, and Livy Dunn, that gymnast from LSU, who's like a bazillionaire or whatever, she was brought in to be a speaker, and Colin Simmons had a picture with her. I'm like, all right, well, probably getting her LSU's cause there.
Smart. I see you, LSU. I see you, and I respect you. By the way, if you guys are looking for some reporters for your website, Jason and I can be wooed at any moment. If you guys want to fly us up there and put a bunch of attractive women around us, hey, we'll be willing to take that trip as well.
Hey, my wife is out of town for another week and a half, so it's all fair game, man. So.
I'm up this weekend. I'll go with you as well. We'll see what happens. All right, so Jason, I got one more Colin Simmons question, and I wanted to talk recruiting in general. Give me the both sides of it. If Texas does get Colin Simmons, what does that mean for Texas recruiting wise, being able to get a 5-star defensive end? On the flip side, if it doesn't happen, man, I start looking at these state rankings. I'm not seeing Texas ranked. I don't see that Texas name amongst the top guys. So I want to know what that means on the flip side if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I'll start with if it doesn't happen, and then try to end on a positive note. But if it doesn't happen, I don't want to say it's catastrophic, because again, they could flip Colin Simmons, and there's confidence. Some people in Austin feel like, hey, they're going to get Colin Simmons in the end, no matter what happens on Thursday. But like you said, man, you'd rather be playing from ahead, especially in terms of being able to use his commitment on Thursday to establish some momentum. If they don't get Colin Simmons, Anwar, I mean, it's just an awful, awful recruiting year in the state. I mean, they could still get a guy like Kobe Black, but they're probably not getting Micah Hudson. We've all kind of conceded that at this point. You look at the top 20, they don't have a commitment in the top 20 in the state. There was a time when Texas was kind of heating up. Everybody's like, hey, this could be another top 5, top 3 class if they get Micah Hudson, if they get Colin Simmons and Kobe Black and some of these out-of-state guys. If they don't get Colin Simmons, they don't get Micah Hudson, I mean, this thing is probably looking – it won't even be a top 10 class, maybe not top 15. They'll still have to recruit well out of state. They still can. We've seen the staff do it before. I mean, it'll be a solid class, but certainly not up to what the expectations were, and it'll be a disaster in state. Let's just call it what it is. This is just a weird, unique year in state. Now, the bright side, if they get Colin Simmons, I said this on the board, on Orangebloods message board today. I said, if they don't get him, it's not catastrophic. I'm not saying that all these guys are going to say, okay, I'm not going to Texas either. But if you get him, it sure as hell helps quite a bit, just establishing some momentum. Guys like Kobe Black. You've got a couple players out of Louisiana, like top 100 type players who are going to be announcing pretty soon. So, it could help with some of those guys. I mean, Colin can get on the phone, and his voice will carry a lot of weight. He's very active on social media. So if you get Colin Simmons on Thursday, then you can kind of see it kind of ramping up for Texas, and maybe some of these other dominoes decide to follow him and join him. If you don't get him on Thursday, if you're Texas, it's going to make your life a hell of a lot harder. And honestly, if he goes to LSU, a lot of these guys that Texas is still recruiting, including Kobe Black, I keep bringing up, Dominic McKinley, they're looking at LSU also. So that's another feather in LSU's camp. So just feather in their cap, excuse me. So big recruiting win, just getting Simmons just getting him on your commitment list, that alone is a big win. But the potential momentum that you could establish for either program to get him could be huge.
What else is going on recruiting wise that we need to know about, Jason? What kind of updates that you may have that you might not are non-Colin Simmons related that some people might be interested in?
Yeah, I mentioned Dominic McKinley, big defensive lineman out of Louisiana. He's going to announce on September 1st. I tell you what, Dominic is notorious, even from other recruits and coaches and everything else. He just doesn't tip his hand much. But I'll say this: there's some vibe from people in the state of Louisiana that he's probably going to leave the state. He's just, for whatever reason, kind of soured on LSU. He did visit LSU the same weekend that Colin Simmons was there in late July. But there's a vibe that he's going to leave the state. I think Texas is in a really good spot there. Oklahoma's thought to be in a pretty good spot. Texas A&M feels like they're in a pretty good spot. Ohio State feels like they're in a pretty good spot. I think Texas may be in the best spot of all, on where his mom is an educator. Academics are important to him. So I think Texas has a really good shot there. The other big news will be following this weekend. TJ Lindsey, another defensive lineman, he's going to announce on Saturday. He announced yesterday that he will announce his decision on Saturday. Texas is in that final grouping. It's kind of Texas and Auburn, I think. I think it's going to be Auburn, I think, on Saturday. But, Texas will keep chipping away there. We'll have our answer to that one on Saturday. Beyond that, not a ton going on. Obviously, college, it's dead period. College coaches are still busy with their upcoming season. So are these high school players busy with their upcoming season. But so we're going to have a few announcements coming up this week, later in August, obviously September 1 on Dominic McKinley. But it's starting to slow down a little bit, and it'll pick back up in September.
So you said that that's when they'll be able to go back on the road at this point, because it's interesting. It's dead period, but there's still contact that's still allowed, right, Jason?
Correct. Dead period just means, a lot of people kind of misconstrue dead period. They could do what you and I are doing right now, Anwar. They can text, they can talk. They just can't have any face-to-face contact during dead period, but they can still communicate. They can still call, text, FaceTime, all that kind of stuff.
Jason, a couple more questions. I'll let you go. For as the season progresses, do you know what the big recruiting weekends are going to be this year? Do you know what games those are planned, or is that still kind of in the works to your knowledge?
Still in the works. I haven't heard that there's a big one. I mean, they obviously always have a big one in December, kind of after the season ends, right before signing day. That's when they traditionally bring in. It used to be they'd bring in their commitments on their official visits, but now those guys do those official visits in June. But they'll still try to get those guys back in, just kind of one last time to get them together. I think Wyoming, there's a chance they could have some guys in for Wyoming. I mean, Rice will be Rice. Some guys will show up just because it's the first game of the college season. But I haven't heard yet that there's one big kind of recruiting weekend where they're trying to get a bunch of players out. Frankly, most of their targets have already taken their official visits. Just about all of them have at this point. So I don't think you'll see a big weekend where they have like official visitors, but I think towards the end of the season, they'll try to get those guys back on campus just for, one last go around, show them again why you love Texas, why you want to sign with Texas right before they put their pen to paper, or however they do it nowadays. Not pen to paper so much anymore, but in December.
And the last one, I think Ketch had talked about, was he talking about KJ Lacey? Is he going to take a visit to LSU? Is that what he was talking about? I feel like there was someone in the 2025 class who they thought was potentially just going to come to Texas. I thought you said it was a receiver that somehow take an LSU visit now. Do you know what he was referring to? I guess
no, I don't. I'm like, I better call KJ Lacey. But,
No, he said the Duncanville wide receiver.
Corey Moore. Okay, I was like, I better get on the phone with KJ when we hang up here. But KJ, in fact, just tweeted some pro Texas stuff yesterday. So I think he's pretty solid there, and he's planning on coming back in for a game, at least one game. DeCorian Moore is who Ketch must have been referencing. He did visit LSU with Colin Simmons, with a couple other teammates, Caden Durham. That last week in July. Will he be back at LSU? Yeah, I fully expect that. But I think he'll be back at Texas too. There was some chatter that DeCorian might go ahead and commit on August 10th with Colin Simmons, with Caden Durham. DeCorian shot that down. He said, no, that's not happening. But I'm telling you, LSU, again, I mean, what happens on Thursday with Durham, with Colin Simmons, that could certainly impact DeCorian. So it's, a lot of moving parts here. I mean, will he visit LSU? Yeah, I fully expect that. LSU is very high on his list. Texas is right there with him, but still a long way to go. But yeah, that'd be another huge piece to the puzzle if they can get Colin and then eventually get DeCorian Moore. Those are, two guys who, well, they are the top two guys in the state probably in their respective classes.
Well, if there were ever would be a reason to join Orangebloods, Thursday would be the day, Jason, because it's either going to be a huge celebration or the biggest meltdown ever. So that just to put that in there and making sure you get all of the updates that are happening, whether it's Jason giving you guys updates, Ketch giving you updates. Use that promo code OB Live, scan that QR, 67% off. Right now to get all your Colin Simmons updates, all your recruiting updates that are be there, all the behind the scenes stuff, because Jason will be on the board and you'll be drinking one way or another.
Thursday night, yeah, probably so, yeah. We will have a presence at his announcement, and okay. Normally I don't do that. I'm not going, actually. We're sending another staff member, but I'm like, man, I don't usually go to those things unless I know it's going to be Texas, but I don't know on this one. But we will have an Orangebloods presence at his announcements, which will be a little awkward if the choice ends up being LSU. But we should be able to get the inside or the backstory on how this all went down after he announces on Thursday.
Is that going to be? Is he going to televise that? Like how? What's are we going to have someone that televises it? What are we going to do?
Well, we might have to have Aaron, our guy there, just live stream it on his own. But yeah, it's going to be live streamed. There's a whole backstory there, but yeah, On3 is going to live stream it. There was some talk about him doing it with Rivals, but I'll just say it didn't work out. I think Colin wanted certain things to happen that Rivals wasn't okay with, so it's going to be live streamed on another network.
Okay, so we can watch it on On3 I mean, so it is what it is. So no problem with that. So the victor goes to spoils, and that's what such it is. All right, so we'll figure it out. We'll have someone there. We'll have live coverage. We'll have live updates. We'll have all those kind of things. So no problem. Jason, get your rest. I know you got more work to do. By the way, I've got media availability tonight, Jason, at 10 p.m.
Yes, 10 p.m. I saw that. I thought of you when I got that email last night. I was like, poor Anwar, and it's like a couple players, like, oh my, it's one thing if it was Sark, it's like, okay, but you're going to a couple players at 10 p.m. You might have to if I was you, I might have to run out of gas and just not show up or something.
I'm gonna run out of gas just on my personal body, having to get in the car at 9 o'clock at night to go somewhere. Like that's just not where I'm at. So it's that I'll be running out of gas, but it'll probably be physically more so than anything. I'll be dragging tomorrow morning for sure. But all right, Jason, appreciate you. Go ahead and get out of here, and we'll talk to you soon. Jason Suchomel, Orangebloods.com. He will be a Wednesday staple, by the way, going forward, or rather Tuesday staple here going forward around the same time every week, so we can actually get those recruiting updates from him. Get some dive deep into that, everything that he has. So we'll do one last break. And then I'll break down a couple more little things. So one last break before we go ahead and get ready to wrap the show up. Don't go anywhere. You've been here this long. By the way, hit the like button, please. And subscribe. But hit that like button if you made it this far. Thanks.
This Orangebloods recruiting flashback takes a look at maybe the best thing Charlie Strong ever produced for the Texas football program. What is that, you ask? Identifying Sam Ehlinger as the quarterback of choice for the 2017 recruiting class and then landing his commitment. For those who might not remember, Ehlinger finished as the nation's number 115th overall prospect in the 2017 Rivals recruiting rankings, the 17th best player in the state of Texas, and the number 5 dual threat quarterback in the country. While Rivals eventually came around on Ehlinger, I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit for ranking Ehlinger as a top 10 prospect in the state and the number 1 quarterback in Texas before he ever received a scholarship offer. SMU was technically the first school to offer Ehlinger, but it's important to note that right after the Mustangs came after him with an offer, Houston head coach Tom Herman followed. Not long after Herman offered, Ehlinger received his first Power 5 offer from Charlie Strong and the Texas Longhorns, an offer Texas fans had been anticipating since a terrific display by Ehlinger at the Texas Elite Quarterback Academy in mid-June. According to Ehlinger, Texas OC Sean Watson told him that they weren't going to offer any other quarterbacks in the 2017 recruiting class. Quote, "They're not going to offer anybody else," end quote, Ehlinger said. 9 days later, the lifelong Texas Longhorn fan, you might have heard about that over the years that followed, committed to the Longhorns. Quote, "Been a Longhorn since day one. I'm truly blessed to say that I'm committed to the University of Texas," Ehlinger announced on Twitter. There wasn't a lot to Ehlinger's recruitment for the better part of the next 16 months as he finished his junior season, competed at the Elite 11 finals going into his senior year, and then went on to begin his senior season in 2016 at Westlake without any distractions. Yet a thumb injury ended his senior season prematurely at Westlake, and it coincided with a horrible 5-7 year for the Longhorns that ended with Strong's dismissal. Suddenly, there was some doubt about his future for a day or two. Almost as soon as Tom Herman was announced as the Texas head coach, he met with Ehlinger to ensure that the player he first offered nearly a year and a half earlier, and before Texas ever offered, knew that he was at the center of all of his plans while on the 40 acres. Following that meeting, Ehlinger locked back into his commitment, and the rest is Longhorns history. Ehlinger was the best part of a 2017 recruiting class that Ehlinger often joked was nicknamed the shit-stain class because of the small reputation it had upon its arrival. It ended up being a class that produced 4 NFL players: Ehlinger, Sam Cosmi, Taquan Graham, and Josh Thompson.
Welcome back. Super glad we've had a really good show today. Had some really good guests today. So yes, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe to our channel if you have not done so as of yet. You need to do so. You get all the notifications when not only when these shows starts, but when we just do impromptu videos like what Ketch did over the weekend. They just decided I'm going to do a Colin Simmons video, and it kind of blew up. So make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit subscribe. This is what we're going to do as we continue to go and move and kind of grow this channel. So there's some things that I didn't get a chance to get into that I'm saving for tomorrow. There's some props that I want to give to some people, so I'm going to save that for tomorrow. So here's why don't we just have this conversation? The one thing I'm not going to save for right now. The preseason coaches poll was released yesterday, and we saw where your Texas Longhorns were ranked. They were ranked number 12 by all the coaches that were out there. And so let's kind of go through the list, top 10 list that we have there for those who don't have it in front of you. I'll just go through it for you. And then because this is going to really kind of go into our theme of this season, which is going to be great expectations. Like when we start talking about the expectations that Texas has and why the success that people expect this team to have, right? There's going to be tangible. It's going to be because of the quarterback. It's going to be because of the receivers. It's going to be because of the offensive line. It's going to be because of Barry Sorrell, double-digit sacks, right? It's going to be because of the other guys on the defensive line. It's going to be because of Jalen Ford. It's going to be because of what they have in the defensive backfield, right? It's going to be all these things. Hell, even the punter's good. Ryan Sanborn's good. And so there's going to be Texas is obviously favored to win the Big 12. And so when I had Danny Davis, he made a good point. Favored to win the Big 12, you should definitely be ranked, as high as this. So Georgia gets all the votes at number 1. That just makes all the sense in the world. Brett McMurphy. Oh, thank you. Oh, man, look at you, Blake. You're on top of this. Good job, Blake. So we got Georgia at number 1, Michigan at number 2. We see Bama, the number 3 team there, Ohio State, LSU, USC at the number 6. Obviously, followed by Penn State, Florida State, Clemson, Tennessee, Washington at number 11. And then there's Texas that's sitting at 12. Here's some of the things that kind of stood out to me as far as this whole list was concerned, and we'll just go through it right now. I noticed that Blake, you keep it up there for a second. You can put that back up there. I noticed that TCU was ranked at number 16, which is crazy. It shows that the coaches believe that last year was a fluke. That was something that they will come close to repeating again. So I feel like they gave TCU their love just out of just general respect, but nothing else. Kansas State at number 17 and ranked there. It's a little respect for Coach Kleiman and the program that he's been able to get there. Number 19, though, Oklahoma slips in there. Find that one to be pretty interesting based off of Oklahoma's success or start last year. So, but they end up being the number 19 team. Now, here's where it gets interesting, though. I thought out of all the things I saw, the very tail end of the poll is what it was really interesting to me. Texas Tech coming in over Texas A&M. Texas Tech, it's only one spot. It's only one spot. But Texas Tech and Joey McGuire getting the love over Jimbo Fisher and the A&M Aggies. Oh, okay, Blake, you can go ahead and take that off. That says a lot. It says a lot about what Joey McGuire has been able to accomplish. It also shows the lack of confidence that people have in A&M, which is fascinating when you consider that this was the number one class that they had not too long ago. And the same coaches in the same fraternity have said, nah, we don't necessarily believe in them. We don't necessarily believe they've got that juice to turn this thing around. It's like you barely made it in, because some of the teams that were on the outside looking in was Iowa, South Carolina. Iowa had 169 votes. South Carolina was at the 89 votes there, followed by Florida. UTSA got some votes, actually. They were at 50. They had 59 votes as well. Pittsburgh, I'm just kind of going through there. Baylor was at 28. And I'm trying to go through to see if there's any other by Oklahoma State. And that's really about it. So let me tell you what USA Today said about Texas and their ranking. They kind of broke down everybody. And then this is what USA Today said. They said Texas is bad, ... Not quite. Or put it another way, not yet. Just plenty to like, though, as the Longhorns enter the regular season as the favorite in the Big 12. Start with quarterback Quinn Ewers, who held Arch Manning at bay during the spring and has earned raise for his work on and off the field. Okay, well, I'm not going to read that now. That's crap. I'm not going to read something now when I know that whoever wrote this doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. I'm sorry. But when you have to tell me that Quinn Ewers had to hold Arch Manning at bay, well, then I'm just not going to continue reading. Like there's no need for me to continue reading crap that's not true. If you follow this team, you 100% understand. 100% understand that no, he was no holding him at bay. Malik Murphy is the number 2 quarterback. All right, well, USA Today, I show you guys do great work in other areas. I will not quote you. You're pretty much done as it relates to this whole thing. Texas sits there at the number 12 ranking, and we'll see how far they go. We'll see how far they end up moving up. We'll see how far how far they go and progress. It's as the season goes along. And we'll see if El Presidente is right, because El Presidente has predicted 12-0, and we'll see what that looks like at the end of the day. And yes, Chad, I will preach. I'm not going to have crap on my show, and that was crap. And I just, at that point, you don't know what you're talking about, and there's no need for me to continue to highlight that thing. Hopefully they'll learn maybe to watch this show. Okay, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. Remember, 12 o'clock, there will be Chad and Ketch, House Divided, from 12 to 3. He's going to talk more about Colin Simmons, so make sure you guys check that out. 3 to 6, there will be the Rodcast with Rod Babers. He will bring that thing home. Make sure you hit like this video if you made it this far. Subscribe to the channel. Share it with your friends. Let them know, hey, don't just keep this thing to yourself. It's like, man, I got something cool, kind of like enjoy, give you an option. there's not a lot of things going on in the radio world. So go ahead. You can plug this thing in the car. We all got USB ports, unless you got an old car. Got a USB port, plug that thing, got Bluetooth. You can listen to this thing in the car while you're driving, listening to this thing at work, while you're exercising, hit it on the replay. If you had it hit, do it. I appreciate all your support. Appreciate all your love. Thank you so much. Thank you to Blake, who's producing hard behind the scenes. We absolutely appreciate you. We're going to see, man. I want to see what happens with Colin Simmons, because I'm promising you, Friday, if he commits to Texas, I'll have mimosas out here and we'll have a celebration. We'll have mimosas on Fridays. We'll have a ton of them. We'll have a ton. But oh snap! And I think I have Sarkisian on. I think I have a Sarkisian interview, not one-on-one, but I think he's speaking to the media on Friday. Oh, that should be real interesting. that'll be real interesting to have some mimosas on Friday and show up to Sark. They don't tell him I'm going to ask him. But we'll definitely have a good time. I plan to be back tomorrow. I hope you will be back tomorrow. Bring a friend with you, though. Share it, like it, everything like that. I've had fun with you. Again, thanks to Blake producing behind the scenes. And what we'll always say, as I always close out the show, live each day like it's your last, because